Welcome to this episode of Doug Has Questions. Today, my guest is John Svenson, a Mountaineer, artist, longtime Haines resident. But before I get into conversation with you, John, I just want to, this is going to be episode 26 or 27, I think. And through that, from when I first started, there's been a lot of people that have supported me in this. And the two that do the most work is Marty Fowler, who's here today recording this, and he'll do the editing, and Sam McFeeters. Those guys behind the camera and doing what they do kind of makes this all happen. So anybody that's watching this, listening to this, if you see Marty and Sam, give them a thank you if you enjoy the program. They do their best to try and make us look good. So John Svenson, welcome.
Well, it's good to be here. Thank you for...
Yeah, and thank you for letting us do this in your Extreme Dreams Gallery.
Well, it's we're getting ready for spring right now, so everything is in a pseudo state of chaos. And I might, Marty Fowler, Christy Fowler is your mother. We go back in Haines history. I want to talk about Haines history.
All right, quick Haines history with Marty. Yes.
No idea. That's so cool.
Yep.
That's some testament as to how people stay in Haines and love it here. You're still here.
Third generation.
So, oh, man.
Yep.
Yeah, it's spring. The snow's gone. We're opening in a week our 23rd gallery opening. I think
23rd season.
23rd annual.
Nice.
And like everybody in Haines, we're scrambling right now. We're still preparing for summer. And the first cruise ship came into Juneau 2 days ago. I think Skagway's got one. And so we're all kind of waiting with bated breath for that first boat that's going to come in. And then summer's really began.
That's when summer really starts. Yep, the first ship.
So
where did John's life story begin?
I ended up here in kind of a convoluted situation.
Where did you grow up?
In Southern California.
Southern California.
Yeah, south of LA, between LA and San Bernardino. So technically I'm a desert rat. I grew up in the Mojave and totally different from this. And this is back when I was 17, 18, and my father became involved with Alaskan Indian Arts, Carl Heinmiller, and that whole movement.
Really?
And the way he did that was he was the art director of the LA County Fair back then, which was a huge job. That you could put 10 Palmer fairs in the LA County Fair. It's massive. And he was directing the art department, and part of that was bringing in the arts, like arts in action, basically. And I'm not exactly sure how this happened, but he was put in contact with Carl Heinmiller, and maybe he'd been up here before my dad, because he was a sculptor and a carver and appreciated the wood carving aspect of all of this. And so he brought Carl and the world famous Chilkat dancers down to LA to dance and perform, and also the totem carvers. This was back with Nathan Jackson and Leo Jacobs, and goes way back. And
oh, wow.
And I saw those guys, and they blew me away. I mean, those were... I'd like to relate with this, and whether it's politically correct or not, the real Indian I grew up with. Chuck Connors as Cochise, Charles Bronson as Chato. Those were, I'd never seen real Native Americans, and this was absolutely blew me away. So Carl was at the time, it was MDTA, he was running a program that where he put kids to work, and they, in the artistic sense.
We just interviewed Lee.
Oh, well, there you go.
He was our last one, and he was talking about MTA. But so you came up in that program?
It wasn't that program. It was happened. My wife Sharon was. I mean, she
really?
Was. Well, he had at the time every kid in town worked for Carl. And when I came up, it was the painting oil drums for trash cans around town and painting flowers on them. Like, really cool stuff. And I was sent up. My dad wanted to get me out of LA. It was the time of, the transition period, like sent me to a summer camp or something. So Carl came down. I was enamored, and my parents actually sent me here to work with AIA as a carver and a kind of a fledgling artist. And that was basically it. And my dad continued his relationship with Carl in Alaska.
So how old were you on that trip?
I think 8. Just graduated from high school.
Just graduated from high school.
So
and what year was that?
1967.
1967.
Yeah.
Parents sent you to Alaska for the summer.
Well, Haines to me was, it was like the wild Northwest. It was insane here. The dirt roads where we are right now, it's a cat track.
Yeah.
Nothing was paved. In the old Haines, everything was, all roads didn't exist.
Nope.
Like nothing, it was primitive, but for a kid from LA, it was amazing. And then I was a fledgling climber also, just getting into rock climbing, and that So I saw this place. California is the rock climbing mecca. This is glaciers and more mountaineering oriented, which is more inaccessible, and just it was such a challenge that I've got to get more involved with it. I start coming back every summer is what it amounted to. And at the time, and this is ancient history, Bruce Gilbert, who grew up in Haines, he was the first Alaskan climber that I really met. Bruce and Paul Swift. These guys, they were the heavy-duty expedition guys, like climbing Logan and Fairweather, and Bruce Gilbert did the second ascent of the west buttress of Denali back in '58 with caribou hides. I mean, this guy was...
I remember that story well. He would, my dad, after they got up here, when my dad would go hunting, he'd save the caribou hides for Bruce because he would use those for his bedroll.
Yeah, because your dad would. That's his time period here. Bruce Gilbert was the artist. Josephine Crumbrine did and arts too. Like seeing what other artists moved to Haines and what they thought of this place. And Bruce Gilbert I admired him for his mountainscapes. He was insane. And Josephine Crumbrine for her dog portraits. She was already really well known for that. And then the climbing guys, who Bruce kind of took me under his wing. He was like a mentor to me, and like what it takes to haul a load across an ice field. And LAB was doing all the flying, so Leighton was going in with wheel skis and dropping these guys off back then before I ever went into the ice fields. That freaked me out, and just seeing the intensity of, you just don't go down the street and rock climb like in California. This was really expeditioning.
So when your first climb in Haines, where did you go?
What did we do? Up behind Schnabel's gravel pit up above town, there's a set of cliffs up there. And of course I targeted those, and of all people I grabbed John Hagen, and he was a young guy, I think he was 18 or 19, and we roped up and we climbed a route on those cliffs. That was a huge thing, and kind of freaked him out, and the town was kind of aware of that I was the first rock climbing kid to really come to town that had seriously knew how to put anchors in and not dragging sleds over ice fields, and then so that was cool. And then I brought, as a result of that, I went back to California and like, hey man, check this place out. I had a lot of climbing friends and recruited a buddy of mine to come up, and Carl said, bring up your friends, and brought up this guy, and we'd rock climb together and introduce him to this scene, and we suffered so much because the two of us, thinking we knew what we were getting into, and the old folks, the goat hunters and all those people were the only ones that ever went above timberline. Nobody ever did that. And they knew where the goat trails were, and I think they kind of led us on the wrong track sometimes, like sticking to the big trees and not what looks like a grassy slope. Bushwhacks from hell. And he and I think we did the first ascent of the would be the southwest face of Rapinski over the airport, following those tree patches, and that was crazy. And not technically difficult, but for us it was quite an adventure. We had gold line rope and knickers. This was very primitive. So he and I did that, and he came back a couple of times, and then as a result of that, other of my friends started coming up, and they filtered into town and then filtered out again, they had their lives. I was just stuck with Haines with the artistic aspect, and this was it. And I met Sharon, my wife, who was basically born here in '69, or we met in '69, and that sealed it, and because of her, we're going back in time, like Joe Jurgelite, the Vermeer sisters, they bounced her on their knees when she was a baby. So she had this connection with town that I never would have gotten. Without her, they all loved her as a baby, and she grew up, and because of her, I was accepted into this town more readily. Like people, this guy's kind of cool, and I could go on about this, but I grew up in the Doors, Frank Zappa, like that age in California when the rock movement was just happening, and I came up here and I didn't have long hair. I had hair touching my ears, and I was the California hippie. And touching my ears, it was like, and maybe I wore bell bottoms. I'm really not sure. So she brought back, and she had been out in the United States. She hitchhiked across America and all that. So she was the real traveler, and maybe the real hippie kind of. And so I came up, and it was that. Because of her, my hair touching my ears, it was more accepted because I was a nice guy. I think my attitude got me through a lot of that. I was kind of this cool guy and amazed at everything. So, I mean, that's that part of it. When I met her, that was it. I went to California too. And then we went to Yosemite. I mean, I could go on and on about this. We ran away together, basically.
Yep.
And ran away to Yosemite Valley and spent like 6 to 8 months living in the valley under rocks and dumpster diving. And like the climbers always begin when they get fanaticized about. And everybody's seen free solo and that stuff these days. So rock climbing is more mainstream. Back then, it was, I bet there weren't 50 of us in Yosemite climbing. And so I brought her down there. She was already experienced rock climbing, so that sealed it. Okay, we're partners from that point on.
Yeah.
And I don't know from there, but my dad was out of the scene by this time. I had moved on a couple of years, and he appreciated it, but he was wondering what direction I was going in, because I grew up around in the arts, in the studio around. He's a sculptor, he's a monument builder. This guy, I mean, there's memories of him in the studio, like hammering away on these things at 2 a.m. and monuments that took years to build, and the heaviness of something like that. And he was a master wood carver, and that's where he kind of, I think, the totems and all that.
Totems spoke to him in that regard.
Totally. And
so did you, when you were a kid, did you spend a lot of time in the studio with your dad? Is that kind of where that, do you think that artistic nature came from, or?
At a pretty early age, I decided I did not want to be a sculptor because of these projects. They lasted years, and my mother kept the books, so she was always, that came up like, when are we, these payments that come in on these monuments. It's so she kind of dealt with that, and I remember her saying to my brother and myself, like, don't become artists, because it's that living that lifestyle where nothing's certain. You're working all the time, and technically, too, on these big projects, the artist on installations is really the last one to get paid, because that goes in when the project's finished. So your maybe installments, how he worked it, because we're talking years working on these things. And but I was watching that happen, and like, oh man, it's so heavy. I mean, he'd take his coveralls off and lean them against the wall because they were so covered with plaster, and then he'd eat dinner and go out and hammer away on these things and you'd hear him out there. And he was involved with the painters. Everybody in Southern California, it was kind of a small family of artists, whether they're painting, sculptural, ceramics, whatever it is. But the painters, I was introduced to the watercolorists. And these guys, like Robert E. Wood was my mentor down there. At the time, he was very well known and very accomplished. And I'd sit in his studio because we were close to each other, and he, like young Johnny, I was there, and he saw I was kind of interested in this, and they were so happy, these guys. I mean, my dad was happy too, but he was banging away. It was like heavy art. The painters would put a piece of paper up and start painting this thing, and like the massive watercolors, and they would actually finish in an evening. They'd wet the paper and work your way down, and the style they were working on was really wet and fast. And I loved that. He was a ski instructor, so this guy, I got to be a painter. So because you could travel with it for one. And it was watercolor, so it was a very non-toxic and quick, and everything about it was more mobile. And so that's what I started studying, was the watercolor aspect of it. And being a climber, traveling a lot and getting into these weird places, sketching. One of his, it was almost a mantra, do a sketch a day. No matter if you're at a restaurant and you're waiting for food and you've got a napkin there, keep a pencil or a pen in your pocket and sit down and sketch the spoon, sketch the cup. It doesn't make any difference. And you can't help but get better at it. You have to get better at it. And that was like a sketch a day. It was almost a religious, like, okay, man. And he would, you sketch these things, you crumple them up and you throw them away. It's a personal thing. It's not something you're going to sell or even show to people. But it's that gaining the ability to see and interpret that to a piece of paper, maybe making it look 3D. I mean, it's definitely an art form in itself, that turning a flat piece of paper into something you're looking into. And so I kind of grew up with that mentality. My dad could sketch. Boy, could that. He said, I can't sketch. And you look at his sketches, and oh my God, he could, like, sketching out all these monuments, and he was sketching on napkins and all of that. So I fell into the watercolors world of art. And I can't carve worth beans. My brother came up, and he he followed my father. He stayed down there pretty much, and I moved up here and became what I am. And so he was with the sculptural aspect of arts. And he's a master carver. David, I mean, unbelievable. And he works in neon, ceramics, wood, blowing glass, master glass blower. So, but he grew up with more the sculptural aspect. He took on that heavy stuff and became a master in what he does. So, and I just became a wild. Coming to Alaska, that's like a lot of people that come up here, not because of the arts like me, but because they come up and discover it and they keep coming back. And a lot of people in Haines, sort of the origins were come to Haines, met my wife, came back from Yosemite, and there's no work here. It's middle of winter, so we filtered into the Juneau scene. In the 70s, you could walk into Juneau, any office, state office, and in my case, I want to riverboat up the Stikine River where the mountains are all around me and live in the nature. And it was like, get on the boat, you're out of here. What do you mean, get on the boat? There was no paperwork or anything. Fill it out. And with the State Museum, I worked for them for a few years as exhibit specialist, working there because I could draw and do all that. Same thing, you could just walk in and get this job, and she was able to do that too. So the 70s were magical in Juneau. And that time period also, I met the Juneau Mountaineers, the guys, they called them glacier grubs. And these guys worked the ice field research camps for the University of Michigan. That was going on. So they introduced.
What were they doing the research on?
Well, they were doing glacier grubs. They were doing
to find the little bugs and stuff that were in the glaciers?
No, glacier grub, that's a term.
Okay.
I'm a glacier grub.
You're a glacier grub.
Yeah. And then the scientists would come up and do their thing and bring students up, and the Juneau guys would basically do the hard labor, like set the camps up and punch trails in and do all that stuff. So, and their specialty was dragging loads over ice fields. They weren't technical climbers by any means. They're good at crevasses and avalanches, but those are the guys I met in Juneau, and being a rock climber, I mean, I could go out of this. There were no rock climbers in town, and they wanted someone that could climb rocks so they could accomplish their mountains that required rock climbing sections on it. And so that through those years, 1980, we moved to Haines out of Juneau. The pipeline happened, all of that stuff in Juneau just blossomed, and we got to get out of here because we already knew Carl and had a footprint here, and so we bought the land. Like this Rainbow Acres was, this was 165 acres of pine miller land, and he had already subdivided the water aspect of it, like from here down, and then I became a state surveyor for, we could get into that, like how you filtered from Fish and Game, the museum, and then doing state work. As a climber, I was hired, the Skagway Road was being built, and I was a climber, and through my friends in Juneau who were already kind of with the state and surveying to a point that, hey man, this guy can rock climb, and they hired me to survey to work with the survey crews on the Skagway Road, which was all cut from the Libby Dam drillers all came up to do that. It's intense. And the governor actually made a position called rock climbing or like a mountaineering surveyor, and an official title from my position. And so I was hired on to do, I knew nothing about surveying, but you start rear chain, you do your thing, and then you work your way up to head chain, and then you work your way up to the gunner who's on the transit, and surveyed that whole road over a 4-year period from like raw, nothing, and working with the drillers and hanging off ropes. It was really cool. And because of that, the road ended, so there's your mountaineering surveying aspect kind of ended, but the position remained. So I could come on, like we're going to stake a runway in Yakutat. You want to go up to Yakutat and stake the runway. And I go, are there ropes involved? No. Okay, I'm not going. There's no ropes involved. And I would stay at the top of the list. I wasn't bumped down because I refused the job, because I was the mountaineering surveyor. Yeah. I could take specific jobs doing that. And we were surveying the boundary peaks and a lot of cool chopper time. And it was the ideal for a climber. It was the best. It was just a dream. Because at the expense of the state, I was going up onto the ice fields and doing these incredible things. And then that kind of ended, and where do you go from there?
If you got the state paying for you to go climbing and paying all your expenses, that's kind of top. Like you said, that's top of the hill.
Unbelievable. unbelievable. And so that sort of ended. And this went on for 30 years, and up to, I don't know, 1991 or whenever that kind of ended. But you're sort of working with the state, and then you're working toward not only retirement, but the medical. We were tier 1 back then. Tier 1.
Tier 1
5
was...
years, full medical.
Yep.
5 years that there's no retirement, but the medical was there. So it took me 30 years to get those 5 in. On my schedule,
Yep.
I could go on the road. What, they're laying down asphalt now? Okay, I'll do that for 6 weeks. You're making $8,000 a month. And some years I'd work 6 weeks, like 8 weeks, and kind of pick and choose. And also the state wanted to move us. There were a bunch of us here: Mark Sagi, Chris Kemp, Pete Dorn, a bunch of us here working in this tight-knit crew. And we didn't want to leave town, and they'd want to send us out to do these jobs, and we say, no way, we're leaving town. So it was sort of this love-hate relationship with the state in our case, and we were good at what we did, and we were here. They didn't have to import people, but we're like a pain in the ass, really. Like, okay, so they'd have to hire us, but we could do those. But that went on to the point, and like this mountaineering survey title, I knew that once I quit with the state, that title would totally disappear. No, you don't hand it down to the next climber. And as state work goes and working toward that retirement aspect in the medical, I was involved with paving the road basically from Haines to the border. So you end up a mountaineering survey checking culverts, wherever they want to put you, but kind of learning the ropes at the same time, like asphalt quantities and how they laid this stuff down, which is a whole kind of a science in itself, working with calculators a lot. And when we hit the border, that was like border station, that was it. And over 5 years, I'm out of here. And it's amazing because 2 or 3 more of us said that was kind of their time period too, and bailed on it. But and then that was it for the state. And it was really a cool ending in a way, like a big celebration. We paved to the border station, and yeah, this is it. And those are considered 20-year roads. Everything paving is a 20-year road. So here it's 20 years later, the road's kind of wavy, and here and there, and like watching how that kind of thing deteriorates when you survey it to the pin. It's like everything is perfect. You could drive a race car up that road and not pick up a dime. It was like so smooth. So, but that was educational too. So that ended the state aspect, and at the same time I was getting into jumping around here, getting into
let me bring this back a little bit. So while you're working for the state on these short increments, 6 weeks here, 8 weeks there, is this when you were doing a lot of your climbing?
Exactly. And the state work was summer, and I don't know, late summer, October, things just tend to shut down. And that was the beauty of this too. Everything shut down. I was still on the rehire list, and it was permanent seasonal. You talk about an ideal time period to be working with the state. That I could be laid off, collect unemployment all winter, and instant for sure rehire in the spring. Yeah. And with the state, everybody says, I'm going to come back, and they go, oh yeah, you'll come back. But we did. We kept coming back, and they had faith in us. Like we got this solid crew in Haines that was really there when they said they would be. And so all winter to, till April, sometimes May, we're not working with the state. So, and being a climber, there's connections between Yosemite climbing and how I got involved with climbing Denali up north. And a buddy of mine, we did a bunch of routes in Yosemite, and he went to Anchorage, I went to Juneau. He went to Anchorage and formed a company called Mountain Trip, and that was guiding on Denali. It had Ray Genet, some of these people were there, but he was sort of the new blood in the whole, and there were only 8 guiding concessions on the mountain. And so he invited me to, hey, come on up and want to guide Denali. Whoa, that's really heavy, guiding Denali. And we started with Mount Sanford doing that, which Bruce Gilbert had a real good knowledge of Mount Sanford. And that was kind of cool. And then I went up and guided as an assistant guide Denali on this expedition, failed miserably. And then I went back, that was offered.
What was the first year you tried Denali?
89.
Oh, it wasn't until, so you were up here in the 60s, but it wasn't until 89 that you got into Denali.
Well, there's a lot of climbing down here to do.
Yeah.
During the 70s, we would, the climbing world, we'd go, we'd head for Europe in July. We'd fly to the Chamonix in the Alps, which was this mecca for climbers, like the historical things, everything happening in the Alps, climbing with all these guys, totally international. It would shut down late September. We'd go to Yosemite till end of October, and all those same climbers were in Yosemite. They'd all migrate to following the sun, basically. And so we got this huge international aspect going to this, and we sort of knew each other by then. And I mean, it was a rampage. It was absolutely. You talk about dumpster diving and living under rocks, and there were no rules or regs in the valley. You could kind of live anywhere. And,
so still, the thing that gets in, this is why I never got into climbing and everything, or one of the reasons I didn't do a lot of things. How are you paying for your trips to Switzerland and then back to California and back to Alaska? I understand the dumpster diving and everything, but that had to be crazy just trying to figure. It's like, all right, how are we going to get this ticket?
Yeah, well, it was the state. And
so that was just the money you made from the state. You just stretch that out and cover all of that.
Stretch it out. We went to Europe with $135 in our pocket, a one-way ticket, that kind of thing. Hitchhiked through Switzerland, and France, and Italy, and then back to England, and you could, like, what is it, Ward Air, or no, it was Lake Air. You could fly from Heathrow Airport to Atlanta for $130. And it was like a brown bag flight. You weren't fed anything. So we'd be in lines, I don't know, 200 or 300 people long in the tarmac, like the central area at Heathrow Airport, all waiting to get on these almost free flights back home. And we, in Europe, I don't know how we survived, eating, we ate, and we...
Were you doing odd jobs for people, or you just figuring out wherever you can get some food?
Yeah, and one thing we found too, that in Yosemite, the climbing world, everybody was a hippie dirtbag. In the United States, it was not something you wanted to get into because you're just out there. There's no esteem, nothing to it. You're just doing it. We went to Europe, and the climbers were already heroes. They were like the Joe Brown and the Don Willens, and these guys were international heroes. They're getting into the Alps, and those were the guys that I really looked up to. Going to Annapurna and Everest and climbed, so you went over there. If you had an ice axe, people would come up and want photographs taken with you.
Really?
Suddenly you're thrown into the spotlight.
Yeah.
And then they heard we're from Yosemite, and that was another whole thing. Oh man, the Yosemite thing, and that puts you in another bracket. So, which, I was like an average dude. I hadn't done great things in the valley. Just the fact that we were from there, and those, I could get into this, like hitchhiking across Europe and trying to get into England. You get on in Calais, you get off at Dover, and we're standing in line, and my wife and I we knew we had no money. So how do you get into this country? And we work our way down the lines, like maybe 10 people apart, and then we were the last ones in there, and we both had red backpacks, and the guys in there go, come on, they knew we were together, and I sort of gave them our sob story, and we just can't do this. And I have a letter here from Joe Brown, and Joe Brown at the time lived in Wales, Llanberis, and he was the god of climbers over there, Joe Brown, and we had actually been this goofy kid kind of writing this guy and getting these letters. Come on over, John, and we'll do something. I brought that letter out, and they looked at the border guards. Joe Brown. Oh my God! I mean, they knew this guy, and they go on in. It was like amazing. The realization that climbing in Europe was already a national sport and really admired, and these guys were heroes. And coming back here, where you're being kicked around by rangers, and but it's since grown into something way more acceptable than that.
Yeah. So the other thing that I'm thinking of while you're describing this is, are you packing your own ropes and all your anchors and carabiners and harness? Are you packing all this with you? Are you borrowing that from people over there? Or?
We brought our gear, definitely.
Yeah.
This was before harnesses. There were not seat harnesses.
Okay.
So, and we would walk onto an airplane with an ice axe. And I remember distinctly, like this meat hook, like this whole thing, and the customs guy picking up this ice axe, and he'd look at you and go, whoa, like you could kill somebody with this, and then hand it back to me. Okay, that's pretty secure. But you could, like the Irian Giant getting into international thing, we'd come back from New Guinea and these places with spears and bows and arrows and spears, just walk into the airplane over there with eviscerating weapons, and you just...
walk right on.
Through.
So, what gear did you travel with then? What all did you bring with you for your climbing when you're heading over?
Boots were pretty important, were really important, and ropes, some anchors. Well, quite a few, I guess. I don't know what our rack. We would wear our gear onto the airplane to get around the weight restrictions.
Yeah.
We'd wear our mountain boots, racks of gear, and walk onto the airplane. There were no walking through, X-ray stuff, and just go as heavy as you could possibly go by wearing this like racks of iron, and all the coats you had, and yeah. Because we couldn't afford to buy anything over there for sure. Although ropes cost $35, everything was so inexpensive. But it's in relation to. I mean, I could get into how well, but yeah, we carried basically everything, and at the end, we'd actually like, you want this rope? I've been climbing, and that'll, give me $10 for this rope, and that's another meal, to survive, and fly back to JFK. The last time we went, we flew into JFK, and there we were in New York, where you're not allowed to hitchhike. And Sharon and I hitchhiked to Haines from JFK in 11 days. Trans-Canada, went across Buffalo, and took us 11 days to get back here.
11 days from JFK to Haines.
Yeah, some
hitchhiking.
Of these rides were hundreds of miles. These rides. Yeah, no, it was really, and I don't know, and it was safe. I mean, there was no. This was.
What year was that?
Let me do that. Was that 1971? I think.
1971.
Because we did up to 78. We were going into Europe and doing that through the 70s, pretty much. When we came to Haines, we had to buckle down and hew our living from the land. Everything pretty much changed, but that's like the 70s. But Yosemite, the Alps, and then sort of discovering this, and actually the 70s. We weren't living in Haines at all. We were still all of our friends, but my brother came up during that time period, and he was introduced in kind of the same program. And he's Lehigh Miller, Greg Horner, like he fell in with that gang, and they were all carving and doing their thing. So he was here, but I was almost pursuing working for the state, and that the schedules they put you on allowed me to do my insane climbing stuff, and the Denali went for 15 years. And that was May. I never spent a May in Haines. And Sharon, she was like, God, May is beautiful here. And I would always be up there like slogging through snow and just missing it. And when that ended, I started seeing what May is in Haines. And there's no way. Nobody could pull me out of here in May ever again.
So you spent 15 years guiding in Denali.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Time period.
How many summits?
Over 10, between 10 and 15, somewhere in there. And that was, and I've never climbed the mountain without clients. I never did it on my own. It was always with customers. And
what is that like as tackling a mountain like Denali, where you've got these other people that their life depends on you?
Oh, absolutely.
What's the stress factor like on that, John? Especially the higher you get, I'm assuming the stress probably increases with that.
Oh, totally it increases.
Yeah.
And and it still happens this way. Mountain Travel would send 10 people on an airplane. There's your expedition is arriving today. You're going to meet at the airport. These people come down the thing, and you look at them and like, oh my God, they've never met each other. They all paid a lot of money to do this thing, and here's this. I could get into the troublesome trekker aspect. Immediately, they're looking at each other, and they're looking at this one guy like he shouldn't be here. It's so obvious this guy should not be here. So they're immediately become a psychiatrist. Like I'm guiding, and it's my job to not cause a problem for them by taking care of this weird guy that maybe he's a brain surgeon, but he's just out of his element. I mean, these guys, they aren't stupid; they're just ignorant, and so that kind of thing would happen. We'd fly into the mountain, and as you work your way up, I started as an assistant guide and kind of learned what head guiding was like there, because you can always. He's the head guide. I'm just, do it. So
I'm just helping him out. He's making the calls.
Watching his anguish and how he would handle that thing. And when I became head guide, the next year I had my own trip. And
so as a head guide, how many did you say? 10? You're responsible, or do you have an assistant with that?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, the assistant. 10 people is a lot when you're dealing.
That's
with
what I was thinking. I was trying to keep 10 people together on a mountain.
Totally.
So you'd have one assistant or two assistants, or
Sometimes two. If there were 12 people, two assistants were good.
Okay.
Um,
But with 10, two people could do that?
Uh,
One guide and an assistant?
I've handled 10 with one assistant.
Okay.
If he's already been, indoctrinated into it,
Yeah.
not a raw recruit. This poor kid. It was kind of a. But you're working your way up the mountain. What do we had? Fly into 7,000 feet, haul a load to 8,000 feet. Then you're at 12,000 feet, then 14,000 feet, 16,000 feet, and 17. So you're establishing these camps all the way up the mountain.
Yeah.
And as you work your way up, you break down. There's a breakdown period where these people, maybe they did a thing on Rainier, like a training, kind of getting in, like what they're getting into, but there's a breakdown period where everybody's hauling loads and sleds up this thing, and it's not technical, but it's your body's just being broken down. And at the end of the third or fourth day, like, I'm dying. No, you're not dying. It's just your body. And by the time you get to 14,000, you start to toughen up a little bit. And the ones that aren't going to make it really make it themselves evident by then. It's like, I don't know about this. And so you're kind of working your way up. And at the, I didn't have too many psychological breakdowns. There were moments where, I could get into this in depth, but one incident where this guy is with us and he was kind of a problem, and everybody didn't know what his problem was, and we were at 12,000 feet, and he went, oh no, went back around the backside of the tent, and he had this pillbox that was full of, it looked like rainbow colors, every color, and this pillbox had dumped into the snow, and they were all melting in, leaving colored trails into the snow, and he was freaking out. And what's all this about? We didn't know anything about that. And he goes, and then he had to spill the beans, like, these are critical. I have to take these on schedule every day. Well, why? Because he had this thing, was it rave syndrome? There's a technical word. Like if you don't take these pills, you go nuts. And you get tense and screaming at people and, oh my God, and that kind of thing.
So how far up the mountain were you when this happened?
We're at 12,000
12,000 feet?
And at 14,000 feet, the medical camp was there. And that was where you could check in. They had hyperbaric chambers and all this stuff where they could get on stationary bikes. And that stuff was flowing. And so they call it, this was all CBs, no cell phones. Everything was, oh God, I got this guy. They called it, because we knew the doctors and stuff. And I got this guy with me. You got to talk to him. Because he's like, nobody's turning me around. That same kind of thing. Like, I don't know. The guides can't tell the guy he's not going to make it if he's feeling good. The doctors have to do it. And, so I turn this guy into the doctors, and they run him through the mill, and they know his problem, and either they can say, you better stay here while the rest of them go to the top, or we don't find anything wrong, keep him on the team, and that's when the problems begin. Because a guy like that could pass the tests and everything, and we don't see anything wrong. But what about the pills? I don't know. He's normal now, and like chain him down and watch him go crazy. We had that happen. One instance, like you just keep me here for 2 days and watch him. But that kind of thing. There was in the guiding industry, we'd get this booklet called The Troublesome Trekker, and they know that you might get these people, and so it's my job to keep the troublesome trekker off the backs. The rest of the people are paying for a good time. They don't want this guy bothering them. So it's my job to take care of that guy, and they appreciate that. They go, oh, how could you ever do this? And but not let them know you're doing it. It's an art form in itself. Like if you're an idiot or a maniac, I can work with you, not saying you're an idiot or a maniac, kind of like, oh, okay, kind of get you to filter in a little bit more. Once the guy discovers that you're babying him or pampering him, then the problems begin. Because then he feels, oh no, he's cowering and everybody's looking at me, like that kind of thing. So you have to keep it kind of neutral. That's where the assistant would come in. Like if you're my assistant, this is your first trip, hey, Bob over there, you know the problem here. Take care of Bob, get him off my back. If you can take care of Bob, do the thing, you're with me in the cook pit. You're getting, first food. Yeah. And so that's kind of the testing the assistant. Can you deal with this guy? And not let him know it, but just, and make everybody happy. And so in my case, this didn't happen a lot. A lot of the trips were immaculate with no problems, but you'd come back seeing the whole trip through the eyes of the guy in most pain. I'm dealing with the guy that's in pain. I'm not seeing it with the other client's eyes. I'm dealing with this guy. And inevitably, you run back. There's no cell phones. We'd come back to Talkeetna. The expedition offloads, and I go right to the phone booth and call Mountain Travel in Berkeley and say, this guy Bob, man, you're going to get a call, and he's going to chastise me and rake me over the coals. and certainly within a half an hour, he calls Mountain Travel. Svenson's an asshole, and and I've already got my backers are there. You're going to back me on this, aren't you? But luckily, I called first, so they knew that if he calls first, then I'm on the defense. These things like, what does he mean by that? And then, but I mean that kind of thing, and it would.
So what are the for somebody to go on a trip like that? Are there any pre-qualifications that they have to meet to, or is it just if you got enough money, here we go?
It's kind of that way. We would do seminars. If people are contemplating an ascent of Denali, the year before they would sign up for a seminar in Little Switzerland on the same glaciers and stuff, and kind of break them into the systems we're working with. And they did that on Rainier too. They had a training program for Denali people, and and then that's a whole different. You're down at lower altitude, but you're dealing with the technical aspect more than, and you can see the mental kind of what's going on there too. But the people would fake their doctor's reports. You have to have a doctor's release. Your heart's good. You're not this guy on pills or something.
Yeah.
But these guys would sneak in, and you'd look at that, and you'd probably, hey, I'll give you $1,000, doc. Just get me on this trip. And that was happening.
I think the doctor's like, yeah, because maybe I won't have to deal with you anymore.
The doctors that ends up with dealing with him in the end, like if he's rejected this maniac, the doctor knows what he did. But that was what they did. Like technically had to have. When we climbed Aconcagua, this was in South America, one of the 7 summits. They would make us. The Army would make us run around the track, 5 laps around the track, in Mendoza, before they would allow us to go up the mountain. This is the Army making sure that you could run.
That was the test. If
that
you
was
could,
your qualification.
If you could do 5 laps around the track, so mile and a quarter.
Yeah.
If you could run that, was there a time limit you had to do it in, or you just had to
stagger along? I don't know if they had to do this, but it was like a serious thing, and they failed people, doing that. I don't know if they had to keep a perfect clip going, but at least keep moving. And, I mean, that was pretty controlled, but there was no doctor. They actually had a doctor in Mendoza that could check your heart, which is way cool. I like that. But because that was a serious. This is back in the 80s when that was happening.
So, speaking of doctors, you'd mentioned on Denali, like at 14,000 feet, so you got 3,000 feet to go to the top, right? It's 17,000 roughly.
That last day is a long one.
So at 14,000, they've got they got a medical place there. You've got the doctors that if the doctor's like you're not going to make it.
Basically, and it started as just one weather port with a couple of mountaineering doctors were kind of running this thing. It grew in the time I was there, like a couple of weather ports, oxygen bottles. It was quite a thing. You could, it wasn't like a hospital where you had your own tents and all that stuff. But and they were dealing with all the frostbite coming off the mountain.
Okay.
And that's sort of the. If someone's in really dire straits of being rescued, that's where they end up. And they could bring a chopper in there, but it had to hover. It couldn't settle down. So it had to be pretty serious to fly someone out of 14,000. And that's also where they stack the bodies up. And I could get into that. There's no death zone on Denali. That starts technically at 24,000 feet or something. But you get above 14,000 feet, above 17,000 feet, because of the spin of the Earth, the atmosphere is thicker at the equator and thinner at the poles because the Earth is spinning and does this thing. So Himalayan climbers would come over to do Denali, these big buff dudes, and 24,000 feet, no sweat. They would get so punished on this mountain that 19,000 feet on Denali was like, I don't know, 26,000 feet, 25,000 feet in the Himalayas. And there's a shock of these guys getting just hammered up there in the high winds, and it's really harsh. And that aspect was kind of fun to see. And they'd come back more damaged than, the Americans and the people here that were tuned into that.
So how tall? I thought you'd said earlier 17. How tall is Denali?
It's 20,000.
20,000.
Yeah.
Okay.
14 is the medical camp. You've got
14,
2 camps to the summit.
Yep, and then a couple camps to the summit.
And you get
so 17 is the last camp to the summit?
Last camp.
So that last day you got to do, or when you're going, you got 3,000 vertical feet.
It's a long day. And by then you're either get tough or die kind of thing. Like whoever makes it to 17, okay. You made it here, you'll make it to the top.
You make it to that.
But then it depends on what you eat, like the weather. Do you judge because that's where people, the death zone on Denali probably 19,000 feet. That's where the winds pick up and you freeze to death, and that kind of thing can happen, which would shock these guys that would come over to do that. Because you see them in the, you see people at 14,000 feet in the Himalayas without gloves on in a lot of cases. So it's just, and that was fun to see. Europeans were on a time limit. We got 2 weeks. We're going to do it, and you watch these guys like flying up the mountain, and they're the ones that pulmonary edema and their big purple toes. And they're on a time frame, and they can't go slow and work your way up and acclimatize. They just bolt, and there was a lot of good epics happening there.
So how long would be for you for looking at it? If a person listening to this, it's like, I want to do Denali. Is that a 4 week, 3 week?
30 or 21 days.
21 days is a good time frame to do Denali.
Yeah, that's plenty. And we'd usually somewhat on our 14th to 16th day. Like 14 days would generally get us to the top. And then we're like hauling a load back to camp, move up, haul a load back to camp, move up. So you're ferrying loads up the mountain. And that's your acclimatization process. Which these Europeans, man, they're in a day pack and running. They get up to like 7,000 to 14,000 and whirlies, and you go through these sort of nausea zones. For me, 14,000 feet, you spend an extra day there and get over the lack of oxygen, and then 17,000 feet was always like, I feel kind of pukey, and a day there and you get over that. Your body kind of catches up with the lack of oxygen, and that's, you have to kind of adhere to that, or it's like a recipe for disaster if you don't. It's and we'd be low on the mountain. There's a storm going on up top, and we're down at 12,000 feet listening to the radio calls coming from 17,000 feet, just getting hammered. And you can look up there and see that lenticular cloud. These guys are just engulfed in this whirlwinds, and we're down there in T-shirts on the glacier below. So the clients are also seeing what's going on. I think climbing Denali, if you're interested in high altitude mountaineering, I think it's the best training climb you could ever do. Because it's not only it's like a continual circle going. We land, people are on the summit. We go out to our first camp. Those people are coming back. So it's like the clients are seeing the results of what happens. These guys, and being guides, we were required to assist in any emergencies and stuff. That was the Park Service. Right. So of course we're the guides doing that stuff, and here comes Heinrich being dragged in a sled down from the mountain. We already heard about Heinrich's in trouble, and he'd see us. He'd see me as a guide, and with my clients, we gotta check Heinrich. Oh, okay, check Heinrich, and here he is. And they'd pitch a tent. Heinrich would go in there, and my one requirement was, though, Heinrich's got these big purple toes, and like, what'd you do? I put on an extra pair of socks on summit day, cut off the circulation. It's like self-destruct in a way, but I would have my clients, I want my people to see this. They're not outside just listening to me in this tent. I want them to come in and look at this guy's toes. And by the time they get to 14,000 or 17, they know what they're up against. And then we analyze that night, like, okay, what did Heinrich do that was wrong? Socks and whatever it was. What'd you eat for breakfast? Little things can do that. But so my people would be really tuned, and there would be, I had people bail, like, I don't think I want to go up there. And that's cool, leave them at 14.
It's better to know that beforehand.
Oh, it's way better. Denali it's kind of like being drafted. You can meet up at the airport, you go to Talkeetna, you talk all this stuff out, and you could reject anybody, but once you fly in, that's where, politically or ever, it's like, man, they fly in, they're in there, and you really have to be assertive to get them out and not make them feel bad and do all that. And I've had people fly into or go to Talkeetna and actually say, okay, and they get a rebate, a refund. If they don't fly in, okay, you get a lot of your money back and enjoy Talkeetna. But it is like you got to make these decisions and work with these people. And I've been guiding all my life. And then it got in, the Denali years finished, and what you meet in the mountains like that is called the sugar daddy. And out of the hundreds of people I took up and down the mountain, there's a couple in there that really liked me. Oh, you did such a good job. And so you want to go climb in South America? Sure, I'd do that. Okay. And so I get a call from, my first one was Irian Jaya. This guy's in Jakarta. And hey, man, I bought your ticket already. Get over here. I need you to help me climb this thing. And I'm like, oh my God. And so you pick up these people and you can kind of filter out of the gravy train, the cattle prodding thing, and get into more of a one-on-one or a bunch of buddies and who take you around the world to guide.
Yeah.
And I had two sugar daddies out of, I don't know, over 10 years. A Japanese extreme skier, and who's been to Haines. We skied from Skagway to Juneau. That was epic.
Yeah.
And then
And
another,
you met him on Denali?
yeah, no, he was the yeah.
Yeah.
He was buying his or the Japanese guy. He wanted to ski the West Rib, and in that case, that was one of my last trips up there. And Yoshi, who I knew a little bit about Japanese, I'd worked with them before, and that's an art form in itself because culturally and mentally they're totally different people, the way they approach things and see it, and the gift giving was huge. Like and plus we had a pretty good time up there, and I went up high with him and did all this stuff, and he'd have these Walkmans with earbuds and AM from Anchorage. That was our whole thing up on the mountain. You pick up everything, and he heard, what did he hear? Split Ends, some group back then was like, man, it was like marching music, and Enigma, I forget what that was, and and he was just loved that song. So I bought him an album. We got back to Anchorage, and I bought him the album. Here it is, and it was like the gift giving thing was just it's huge.
Yeah.
And from that, I guided him for 15 years after that. We went all over the world doing Antarctica, to Greenland, to Mongolia, that guy.
Really?
And intermixed with the millionaire from Chicago, Al, and he was very rich, and we put together, and we climbed the thing together, and it was the same thing. He was put together the Goon Squad on the mountain. The Goon Squad, you have a handle. Everybody's got the May West, the April Fools, whatever you are on the mountain, that's your handle. And we were the Goon Squad right from the beginning. He liked that Goon Squad. And he put this other Denali guide and myself, took them up the mountain. And he already had 4 guys with him, the Wrangler from Colorado, the River Runner from somewhere, a doctor from Greenland. He already had kind of formed this adventure team that he paid for everything. So Denali was his first of the 7 summits. And he was, from that moment on, the Goon Squad. Where did we go next? Aconcagua, I think, and then Kilimanjaro. The 7 summits was his goal.
His goal, yeah.
And he'd get the Goon Squad together, and we were all guides. So, and then he would buy into a larger company, Alpine Ascents International. They would say we'd go into Africa and do this stuff. They were in charge of the porters and food and all that stuff, but we were guides, so they didn't have to work with a bunch of yahoos. We were just keeping Al alive, getting him up these mountains, and that went on till a couple of Everest attempts, and I think his wife probably pulled the plug on that because we accomplished everything. I think Mount Vinson, and then Everest. He kept going back to Everest and getting lower and lower on the mountain.
Did you go to Everest with him?
We were on Ama de Blam, right next to Everest, as our training climb, basically the Goon Squad, and climbed this thing. And Sharon came on that one. That was an experience. But and failed. Like a rock fell on one of our guys and broke a compound fracture of the femur at over 20,000 feet, and it was terrifying. The bones sticking out, and luckily Alpine Ascents International, they had the morphine and the giant medical kits. We were just, oh my God, I mean, we could patch someone up, but this was really serious. We're up on this ridge, and so it took days to get this guy down, and like with a ski pole kind of thing, brace on his leg with bones sticking out, and flew out to Kathmandu, and I went back up on the mountain with the remainder of the Goon Squad, and I got to this high point, and there was wrappings of blood, and it was horrible, and this is it, man. I'm just not going to go up in this thing, because Sharon was down in base camp watching me with binoculars, and please don't go! That was living through that kind of thing, and I'm out of here.
Is that the first time she said don't go?
It was possibly, well, it wasn't on bended knee, but it was like, she didn't feel good about that at all. So I bailed. I got up there to that point, and we just had a death here. Donikowski, what was his goat hunting up
Sam.
at 19 Mile? Sam, like he had just perished before we flew out to do this, and he was up there. It was a horrible experience, and I flew up in the chopper like, oh God, and so I got up on this mountain, and here's the French woman fell off last week. She was a bunch of material like 1,000 feet below us, and she had toppled off this thing, never to be recovered, and it was like. I didn't want to go up there. I was kind of like, this is horrible anyway. But so 2 guys kept going. They made it. I went back down, And Sharon and I went down to Pangboche, this really cool place, and kind of watched them. And then the next year they went back to do Everest. That was the plan, the training for Everest. And Yoshi, this was all happening, the Goon Squad and Yoshi at the same time. And Yoshi said, hey, let's go to Mongolia, and I want to climb the third highest peak and ski it in Mongolia. And so, oh man, I'm on that. So got together with the Japanese, and then our guys went back to Everest in '96. Got that shit kicked out of them. That was into thin air. Mm-hmm. That was the year that they went back up there, and they didn't even make it to the South Col because all this stuff was going on. And that's when it cost Al probably $1 million to get us all to Everest and buy permits and do all that stuff.
Yeah.
And his wife, this was his third ascent, and I think his wife just said, "Forget it, man."
Yeah.
And we were
your climbing career's over.
Had enough, There's just a point where you just don't want to pump more. He wanted to be the oldest guy to climb the mountain too, and a Japanese guy, older guy, had climbed it the year before, and that put a damper on like his goal. It was kind of like, you remember the movie K2?
Yep.
It's old now, where the benefactor, he just hung out in camp and paid for the kids to do the climb. Mm-hmm. This was the same thing, but he wanted to do the climb.
He wanted to do the climb as well.
So those guys kind of, Yoshi finished his Big Ten adventures, Al pulled the plug, and that was it. Guiding ended for me. That was, I don't know what that was, 90-something. But, 2005 was the last Japanese trip with Yoshi. And that was kind of it, because sugar daddies play themselves out. But to find these people on these guided trips, to find the guy that really likes you and trusts you, and get in with do buddy system stuff where you're not dealing with these yahoos getting off the plane that shouldn't be there, it really made it more exciting. And also going into places I've never been. Because like Yoshi and Al too, like I've never been there. I'm guiding you, but I've never been to this place. And
so talking about that, so you're going first time you're on this mountain and you're guiding somebody without the local knowledge. Like after the first time you do Denali, you're an assistant guide. If you're going to some of these others and you're kind of like the head guide, who are you leaning on, or where are you getting your information?
Never seen the mountain.
You've never seen the mountain. You got these people that are relying on you to keep them safe.
Totally.
How are you doing your research, or what research are you doing, or who are you talking to before you head out?
Well, things like the 7 summits that Al was doing, we all knew about the 7 summits. That wasn't, we knew where we were going, and kind of Yoshi, you'd go, we're going to ski the highest peak in Taiwan. Highest peak in Taiwan, or like going to Mongolia or going into Greenland, the highest peak. And he wasn't interested in the summit so much as the skiing, because he was an extreme skier. Yeah. And my deal with him was, you get me to Timberline, I'll get you to the summit. I'm not hailing taxis in Jakarta. That's not my job. And I can handle that. Once I'm, on the glacier, okay, I can do that. What was I doing? Hailing taxis I mean, I was, because everybody speaks a little bit English, but nobody speaks Japanese. And I was his head guide and videographer doing all this stuff. And so he'd push me out in front to do the negotiating and stuff like that. Things that I'm not hired to do this stuff, but he knew that too. So there was sort of this mutual thing. And he'd have like news conferences and things like this. He'd say, "Johnson, speak for me." And okay, Yoshi was like, "Up, down, good, bad, no," it was really like cryptic stuff. What does he mean by that? And that was, I didn't know Erie and Jai. Are you kidding? We had naked porters hauling things on their heads, and like I don't know, getting into situations, flying into Greenland, there's no way out of here. The plane doesn't come back, you're not even walking out of here. Things that are pretty terrifying in a way. Faith in airplanes.
Yeah.
But
so what is your thought process going into that? Like you're just saying, I mean, I'm listening to you knowing your experience as a guide, all these trips that you've just talked about that you've gone on, but you're talking about it's kind of terrifying in a way. How did you get that mental mindset to like, all right, we're going to do this, this, and this, and this is going to work out as long as this goes to plan?
He knew I hadn't been there before.
Yeah.
That really plain. Yoshi, I don't know where we're going or how we're going to do this thing. Have you set everything up? Do we, but of course it isn't all set up, like the taxis and the porters. Mm-hmm. To a point it is. And we'd always have, on those trips, we had a complete Japanese film crew, like from Tokyo with us. I mean, guys that had never been on mountains, and they were like the low altitude cameraman. I was the high altitude guy. and they would
Okay.
only go to a certain level, and they knew. So we're dealing with that entity because these were turned into like 90-minute commercial-free epics. Like his plan was to make these. They're pretty. I'll show you one of those sometime.
Okay.
'Cause he has one on the Juneau ice fields.
Yeah.
But it was, and I had the only reason I worked with the Japanese, people like, it's a death wish, man. These guys are just dying like flies. But the Japanese are pretty hard-headed sometimes in the mountains, not fully understanding what kind of situations they're in. And but he gave me free rein to say, Yoshi, we're not doing this. We're in Mongolia. He wanted to ski the north face of this big peak, and we looked at that north face, and Yoshi, we're not going to do this because North Face sponsored him. It's one of these things where he can build
yeah.
it up, but not really know it. But I said we can't do it, and he goes, "Oh, Johnson, what?" And but he accepted that. I said, "If it looks like a death wish, I'm not going to let you do it. I'm not going with you." And he really, that's why he liked me. I could call the shots and let him know because he didn't know avalanches. He didn't know that stuff.
So you guys built up that trust.
Yeah, and then we do this long conference like a Johnson, why not? And the mountain, that kind of led to the mountain is tough. It defeated by the mountain, and get this heroic. Yeah, it was time to turn back and kind of turn it around like it wasn't defeat. It was like the mountain won, but that kind of thing. And but yeah, I mean there were some really interesting. I got in positions with Yoshi that I did not want to be in. Like I could. In Jakarta, we were going through the Freeport mine, which was owned by Freeport, the largest mining company in all of the world. And it was an open pit mine that you could have put the whole town from here to Haines in it, in the middle of. And it was all this secretive stuff. It was American owned because, in theory, Jakarta owed America so much at the time for everything they'd gone through. They'd just come in and mine it. So there were no rules or regs, and it was surrounded by Indonesian guards to go through that mine pit. I'm surprised we were even able to do that because armed guards with us, like no photos, and it was just like really spooky stuff. And then the peak we were climbing was beyond that. We went through that complex, and the guy, we weren't getting a permit. We were in Jakarta for 3 weeks, just sitting there. I ended up roaming the streets at night and having a pretty good time, but Yoshi's running out of money and time, and there was a big banquet being held the next night, and he goes, the guy they called the Fat General, who was the guy that signed the paper that would let us into this thing, the Fat General's coming to this gala ball tomorrow night in Johnson. I want you to go in there and talk to him and say, where's the permit? And me, and that's not my job. And this guy was like Pancho Villa, bandoliers and a hat and a pistol. I mean, this guy was serious. And I'm supposed to go to this thing and introduce myself. Hi, I'm John. I'm with the Japanese guy. Sign, please. And I was sweating that. And Yoshi, I was going to do it. And the Indonesian kid that was guiding us around Jakarta didn't even want to be seen near the gate. You're on your own, man. I'm not going in there with you. And the next day, he signed the paper. I got out of that one. But I was trembling on that. And where do you draw the line? Like, Yoshi, I'm not going there. But Johnson, please, And,
If the locals don't want any part of that.
It was terrifying. But that was probably the most terrifying, potentially horrible thing I would have had to do. Hello, I am John from Haines, Alaska. Hey, we catch fish, or whenever you approach these guys.
Yeah.
But that whole Yoshi thing was really enlightening, like watching how dealing with embassies a lot. It was a whole different situation going into Mongolia. We were there 12 months after the Russians pulled out. It was insane. In Mongolia, they took not the armed transports were gone, but the troop carriers and the helicopters were all left to the Mongolians at that time.
Okay.
Ulaanbaatar was just this concrete kind of jungle, and the industry, nothing had been happening there, and the army was their Mongolian army, but they were practicing with wooden rifles, and it was all drawstrings and buttons, no Velcro, and doing their maneuvers and stuff. And finally, they were in control of their country. Russians had pulled out, and it was so we went across the whole country in this troop carrier, and the best driver, and we had the best. Everything was thrown at our disposal because Yoshi, not only the climbing and the skiing, but he was promoting tourism in Mongolia. Fishing is huge, so he was like a friendship thing with bands were meeting us at airports, and it was like more than just the climb. And I was the only Westerner on this crew, and looking like I do, like we'd be flying across the country in this bashed up Russian helicopter. We'd land at these little villages as we go. I'd poke my head out, and we'd be met by people on horseback and all this stuff, and they would scatter. I'd stick my head out. I look Russian. They don't know who the heck I am, and they would scatter, like leaving dust trails out into the desert. And then one Mongolian, no, come back. This guy's cool. And then they'd all come back. But terrifying. And these helicopters, it was a gunship. And, but having that kind of thrown at our disposal because of Yoshi and his international, he was backed by a lot of people who that, Suntory, North Face, Nikon, Sony, all these people, big thing. But to be in that position too, and then once they knew I was a cool guy, Alaska, I always carried an inflatable beach ball with the world. One of those, you blow it up in Alaska and Mongolia, because these people had never seen the ocean or anything. And kind of vague, and that kind of, and then a picture of a fish, in the third world, a picture of my outhouse and a picture of the chicken coop. Okay. You're instantly family, because everybody has chickens and everybody has outhouses, and it kind of puts you on. They all think we live in gated communities and condos and stuff like that. Their vision of an American, but to know that we live in the woods and here's a chainsaw, that was really learning how to communicate with third world people. And the kids, they swarm around you like Haines. You go into the village and suddenly the kids are all over you. And we had little things for the kids, and go to Toys R Us and buy little magnifying glasses and show them this science show. And Mark Soggy was with me on one of these things, going into the villages and doing our magic shows. And Mark's down the street, and he's if the kids like you, you're invited into the huts or the houses, whatever it is, because they're so children oriented, family oriented, and that little, just knowing that was really helpful and fun. Like, I like kids anyway. They're so unfiltered, humans are all adults are screwed up, and we've got our opinions on what's going on. The kids are the ones that really like fresh air. But, so that aspect was cool with Yoshi. Going into the more third world areas than with Al and the Seven Summits, that's pretty well trodden, and those routes are established. Where this was, bushwhacking through the jungles in Irian Jaya, like what the hell, the spiders are as big as dinner plates, and I don't know, spooky cool stuff besides the climb. Getting to it was kind of the adventure. But,
do you miss it?
I don't miss the guiding aspect. I'm done flying over oceans. Like, we've got friends now that are flying all over the place, and I don't know. That was just, for a 15-year period, I wasn't even home 6 months of the year. Yoshi to Al, like I just land in LA and then take off to Taiwan from Antarctica. I wasn't around. Yoshi paid. That was cash on the barrelhead. Al was just a free trip, Haines to Haines. Okay. And, so I'd at least Yoshi, and I'd end up with these. What was I charging? $3,500 a trip. It's my Yoshi. Your Mercy for $3,500, and that's about what Denali cost then. And he'd pay me in hermetically sealed $100 bills and little envelopes. There was no written anything, nothing written, and it was just like cash and sealed $100 bills and envelopes. And, like payday was unbelievable. Like, okay, you kind of stick that in your pocket, and that was kind of cool too. And I let him know, boy, if you break your neck, there's no paperwork here. I'm out of here. And he accepted that. Al, I don't know what the deal there was, but I guess if you're collecting unemployment and you're on permanent seasonal, are you insured with the state? Like, if I break my neck over, I'm not sure, but we had medevac insurance with American Alpine Club. For $100, kind of like they'd fly you to the nearest sawbones and dump you off, but at least you get out of the mountains. So that was taken care of. I don't know. I'm glad I'm done guiding. That it was like perfect timing for me. Like, and then focusing on the arts. I've got a job to do.
Before we get to the arts with the climbing, are there any of these adventures that you went on that while you're just like, this would be real cool to just come back with Sharon and I, just to do this. It'd be cool just for the two of us to come and just have an adventure on our own. Were there any of those that
we took off as a result of what I was doing?
While you were with Al or while you were with Yoshi, a mountain or a place that you were like, he's like, I need to bring Sharon back here.
That was, well, Sharon.
She
my
went.
deal-
She went on a couple of them with you.
Totally.
Right?
No,
Yeah.
I told Al, I'm not going to Nepal without my wife. I'm
Yeah.
not. And he met her in Anchorage when we did that thing, and he said, "Bring her."
Mm-hmm.
And okay. And as a result, and then Yoshi, I'm not going to go back to Africa without Sharon. They'd met.
Okay.
So he said, "Bring her along."
Bring her.
And,
So
and
she
part
got
of my
to go
pay
on
was
those.
doing her, getting her, and then we went around the world. Like we went to Africa is exactly, Nairobi is about halfway from here,
Uh-huh.
basically, or LA. And so you continue on to Bali. They went into Irian Jaya to get back to LA rather than come back the way we went.
Okay.
So that was really a sweet thing to get her to go basically around the world twice on these trips on their ticket.
Yeah.
The Japanese and this is mano y mano. The Japanese having a woman on the team, and that's a cultural thing. But Yoshi loved Sharon, and I mean we were all family.
Mm-hmm.
But the other crew, the film crew, she had a hard time sometimes because
Okay.
she was tougher than them.
Mm-hmm.
She was hauling a load up Mount Kenya, and these poor guys are just dying and watching this female outdo them.
Yeah.
And there was an ego thing involved. And we all got sick as dogs at height. Everybody's kind of puking as you gain altitude. So she was human to them.
Yeah.
But she would offer warnings and things like, "Don't drive too fast. You're going to kill a kid, and they'll all be stuck with spears." These guys were kind of insane over there. They didn't blend in with the third world aspect too much.
Mm-hmm.
But so she actually pulled on Ahmed Ablam. She was there when this guy broke his leg, and she was the only person that could grab the radio and talk English. Go, "Oh, this stuff is going on," and she dealt with that before, and she was actually doing the communication from base camp up to
Okay.
where we were.
Yeah.
So a real asset, but that wasn't a Japanese thing. The Japanese they put up with her in the end. I mean, it was all worth it in the end. And then you just learn to kind of stand back and let it happen. They won't insult a woman, that kind of thing. But a boy, she could be shunned and just not really listened to. She's not a part of this thing. Okay, but yeah, no, that was incredible. I've never paid my way to go around the world ever on any of these trips, and then she got these free ones out of it too. That was the sweet aspect of this whole thing.
Yeah.
And then I've got friends that went on to do still international guiding, doing this stuff, and I don't know how they do it. You hit a certain age, and I don't know. You don't get more cantankerous, but more direct with people. There's a way to politically kind of schmooze your way into, or whatever it is, talk your way out of a situation by talking their talk, or whatever it is. But I have a hard enough time talking my own talk here, and I think the guiding too is a good time to end because getting into the arts more full time, and then picking up the 1% and really focusing. Because I've been painting the art. Was the same time period. We're making art.
Yeah. So you started with your art when you were still young.
Yeah.
When did it become in your mind, or when that, hey, I can sell some of this?
Well, in the 70s in Juneau, we were in galleries, selling.
Mm-hmm.
The selling was there, but it wasn't putting the maybe the professional, technical, like the time into really figuring it out. And like the kids. I never took business classes, and now you talked about what are you going to be, or what's your degree, and what are you going into business. Back then it was business. How boring was that? And my thing with the Art Fest kids, part of my talk with them was like, you want to become professional artists, you're going to get a degree in art. If you're going to major in art, or minor in business.
Mm-hmm.
Get that, because making the art is just one aspect. You have to sell your art. And if you know how the system works and how to start a business, that's a jump start right there. How to start a greeting card business, or how any of that stuff works. And outside the gallery scene.
So when you were first putting stuff in galleries, was that just your watercolors? Was that some of the larger stuff?
Yeah, I worked in pen and ink, watercolor, and then woodblock prints, but flat art. There's no glass involved in the early days at all.
And was Sharon doing the same kind of stuff at that time too?
She was a weaver.
She was weaving at that
she
point.
wove for like 20 years on looms doing
Well,
that.
the thing with both of you is you guys both do so many different mediums that I don't know when you started each one of them.
I'm too spread out right now. The glass really screwed me up. The painting and focusing on the problem is dealing with galleries and things through my whole life. They they know you as a painter, and when something sells, you need to replace it, and if you're basically you're painting all the time to replace what in theory sells, and then you get into another medium like glass. I'm not known as a glass artist, I'm known as a painter, so you have to introduce yourself, and the glass I'm doing is like almost like paintings, like powdered glass and fusing it in like a watercolor. That aspect is what really got me into that.
What is it, that idea of trying to make it look like a watercolor, is that what intrigued you about getting into glass, or were you just kind of looking for something different?
No, I think that had a lot to do with me sticking with the glass. Like she's a mosaicist where you cut everything up and traditional mosaic.
Yep.
I'm sifting powder through onto glass like with stencils and making it look like a watercolor wash. That freaked me out. Just the ability to do that. I'd seen it before, and there's so many ways you can approach that. But this is a painting on glass, and then the bead making. I think the first glass I ever did was on torches, really making beads, and I got those set up here, and getting into that aspect of melting glass, not the kiln work so much. But the galleries, then you have to, like, what are you? How do they promote you? Are you a glass artist? Are you a painter? Like, you don't want them to be so confused that they're marketing you. I mean, they make my living for me. So to legitimize yourself as a glass artist, I don't deal with that many galleries. And then there's the web and all that stuff going too, so you can promote yourself. That's where, like, these kids, everything is so digital now. You can start an art business on a computer. But letting the galleries, so Annie Cales and Juno, that's it. Like I don't know, Lynch Kennedy in Skagway, and then the Sitka Rose in Sitka. And us, and then of course ampersand everybody around here. Those are the only three. Everybody wants your best work. I found that they want your best. I own a gallery. I want the best. So how do you divvy that art out to have them being satisfied? Because it has to sell. You're not on display. It's there you're marketing that stuff, and that's kind of confusing because we don't do mass production. We don't like greeting cards or prints. Everything is handmade, so there are no two pieces that are exactly alike. So
you don't do any prints. If somebody's buying something, it's the only one?
The print market, I print my own prints now on a computer, and everything I've painted, I format to 8.5 by 11, so like magazine cover size. That's as large as I want to make anything. And that's actually reducing it down in a lot of cases. And that's... I have those in the bin, like everything I've painted, and not going the offset litho scene that was through the 80s and 90s, like Chaws and Juno. She'd go, "Oh, I love your painting. We're going to make 750 of these prints," and she would foot the bill for bricks of prints, and and she would sell them. She was really good at it, but they each have to be signed, so it's a placemat without a signature.
Yeah.
It's so. Getting into that market, and then the print market kind of died because people started getting into more original work, or like the woodblock scene where I could do more than one. It wasn't a one-off like a watercolor, and which helped that a little bit. And and then the print market died. You just like got these bins of prints here. I have hundreds of pounds of prints that may never sell. It's one of these things where I'm painting on the back sides of them now. They've made their money, but it's not like what do you do with these things? And some are so big that you can't walk out with them. And so getting out of that market, even the greeting card business, went through that. It's I don't know where like what to do with these things. Like I said, I'm painting on the backs, and maybe I should at least sign these hundreds of pounds so they're at least they're worth $4.95 in the garage sale. I don't know, but the original art is. But back to the point of like how when you distribute your work, you want to give each gallery what's maybe. Annie Cales wants fish this year. You kind of feel the galleries out. Eugene wants whales because there's whales out there. Lynch Kennedy, I don't know what she wants. It's like you offload these cattle cars, these giant boats, 7,000 people in town. What are they after? What are they? Because there's just no focus on a certain image that maybe they're after. It's all hit and miss.
So the part of me that's asking that is if you're not doing prints on some of this stuff, on watercolors, I mean, how your glass, I think, is different, right? Because you can, I would think glass, you can kind of make something similar and make a bunch of them and
kind of like the whales.
Yeah, looking at the glass with the whales
I've
and
got
stuff.
those pattern. There's the same whales there. You're just putting them in different
in
context.
different contexts.
Totally.
But are you still doing any watercolors?
Oh yeah, no, I've got a couple going right now.
How many do you paint a year to keep the galleries so they have enough stuff to sell in 4 different places?
Yeah, well, I don't do watercolors anywhere else. No, that's just glass, actually.
Okay, for those other places, it's just glass.
It's just glass.
The only place you can get a watercolor is right
pretty
here.
much here. And Annie Kales, they'll do watercolors because that's they got a pretty good market too. And we've been with her for 30 years. And then online, everything is photographed and put on the website and out there. And a number of through Skagway, there's a website with all my paintings and stuff on it. Sharon's mosaics. If you put I don't know, a raven or anything in one of her mosaics or whale, it's out of there.
It's gone.
I mean, it's just it's such a unique medium. Mosaic is. It's forever, it never fades. You know, easy maintenance. There's nothing to it. It's also kind of really popular right now. The whole mosaic process, where she maybe has you can't see that, but there's my glass right there, that Aurora with the tents, and that's using the glass as it is and not busting it up. Using the glass is the watercolor. I mean, I couldn't do a wash that clean, and so I'm sort of high grading these sheets of glass we get are huge, and like looking at these things, and I'm not going to bust that into triangles. Are you kidding? I'm going to use it as it is, and put it in the kiln and fuse it. And then all these little prints, those are prints, and they're popular, and I can get into this. I'm in an Alpiniste magazine. I'm in the climbing world. The people that I was guiding on Denali with in the 80s, we all went our different directions. Some of them went to being the editors and people of Alpiniste magazine, where they went, and others became sales reps or whatever it is. But the magazine guys, we've all grown up together, and so I've been contributing to that with paintings and quite a bit. So I get a 25-year-old climber kid comes in here and looks at this painting on the wall and like, wow, you're an Alpiniste. Wow, I saw your work. I want that painting. And well, okay, you live in a van, you're dumpster diving, and you want an $800 painting. I won't do it. Yeah. I've got a bin over there of the same painting shrunk down to a print and for $60. I'll sell you that, and you could push pin it to your van and buy a rope. I mean, I was there. Are you kidding? We weren't buying art when we were climbing like that, and so there you go. And if it's a graduation present, there are exceptions where, okay, if your parents are buying this for you, I'll let you. But I'll just be flat out, because I was one once, and buy a rope. It'll keep you alive till you're 40. You might have an apartment, and then buy your painting. But I'm totally sympathetic toward that. And my audience through my whole life has basically been, I paint the adventures, I paint the climbing, all that, and my audience is dumpster diving van people. Those are the people that really get what I'm painting, and that's my fate, I guess. I just can't paint anything else. Well, I do whales' tails in Lynn Canal and more commercial things, but that's my audience who really gets it. And the free solo gang, they've seen Alex do his things on El Capitan, and I mean, they get it. But those are the ones that really don't have money to buy art. I mean, I can.
What is the difference for you? Because there's this, in my mind, there's this huge dichotomy between these two careers. This guiding, where very stressful, high adrenaline and a lot of things, and then the art is that kind of the yin and the yang, where it's the more peaceful, artistic aspect compared to this really high intensity other part of John's life.
Yeah, no, that's what I like about it. The art is like soft sport by comparison, and the hard sport is where I get my ideas to do the paintings. I come back with all these ideas, and I really get them down on paper while it's fresh in your mind. And after every international trip, like I've got a whole brick of Nepalese paintings, a brick of South American paintings, African paintings, that when I got back, you just rampage, because that's fresh in your mind. Go through maybe a year or two of that, and then you move on to the next trip, but that's where the energy came from, and the painting is therapeutic. Right now it's therapeutic. I'll be on the kilns doing this stuff, and then every time I walk by the easel, I'll stop and work on this painting because it's sitting there and kind of pick away at it, and it's like kind of cleans my mind out because it's so fluid, and you know, it's not a, you know, I get into like making beads where the focus on the hard sport and the soft sport where they talk about focus and sort of nothing's moving but your hands. You got a bead on a mandrel and you're just twisting and you're looking at this flame, and it's almost like a trance dance in a way. You just get so focused on this thing that's a pinpoint. They say computers, you know, you should walk away, computer screen, you're looking at this thing, every 20 minutes you should walk around and look at something else, and you're focused. But when you're focusing on bead making, you're dealing with you know, square inches, and having that be, that's totally therapeutic to me. But the painting is, the cool thing about the painting is I can now kind of paint what I want because the glass is, I mean, it's kind of the market right now. These slump dishes and all this is really cool, and each one of those is, it's not, well, I guess the process is formula, but the images are all different. And so you're working with all these bears I'm doing, and which ones are really going to move first, and those are the ones you want to do again. And I've never been a production line guy. I just can't. Like say the wood blocks, you end up with so many of them, and that's it. But then you destroy the block and it's gone. The painting is totally, I don't know where I'm going with the painting. Right now we're looking down from Rapinski at Haines at night with the aurora. I'm really into night scenes. And it's something that people really understand, and it's maybe a different view than you normally see. And those have been fun. I don't know. I'm so, you know, you talk about being extended in the arts, like where am I going? I got the bead making, the fusing and the slumping, and some mosaic, and then the painting and the wood blocks, and too many things. It's hard to give one up. And I've talked to other artists about this too.
Why would you have to give one up? If you enjoy them all, and they bring you pleasure, they bring you that relaxation, that idea of creativity is still there.
Yeah.
Why would you have to give one up, John?
It's like if you want to really excel in one of those art forms, you probably shouldn't be fooling with anything else. If I wanted to be a glass master, I shouldn't be woodblock printing and painting. I should be focusing on the glass, like the marble makers, watching these guys and how they do these perfect orbs with all the stuff inside. That's like dedicating kind of your life to that.
But do you have to be a master, or can you be really, really good at it?
Right. I think in my case, I'm good at a bunch of things. I don't know if I'm a master of any of them, because the more.
And I guess that's the question. Do we need to be a master at something?
I don't think
so. Are we better to be a master at one thing, or just really good at a bunch of things if all of them bring us satisfaction and joy?
I think a lot of it depends on your audience. Who are you trying to reach? Who are you showing what you're doing? If you're young and you want to make a living as an artist, you establish yourself with a gallery, and they want people that can become masters anyway. Like where do you become a master? I've long since the painters that my mentors, they were in their 60s then, really old to me, and late 50s, 60s, and still like nationally known painters who are doing magical things and still looking at their paintings and going, I'm still trying to figure it out. I'm still trying to figure it out. And you look at the paintings they're doing, and they're still kind of working with the medium and like how watercolor works on different papers and all that stuff. But these guys, and they were masters, definitely. I've long said, like the marble makers, I love making marbles, but I don't have 50 more years to figure out how the heck they're doing that unless I sit on that torch for, endlessly just working at it. Yeah. And I really don't have time to do that because I enjoy doing everything I'm doing. You're like the fusing, now, what's a master? My goal in the gallery, pretty much, a lot of my work on the walls is to have somebody that is a master or someone that really works in glass look at my paintings and go, wow, these are pretty cool. Keep it up, that kind of thing. You're looking for someone that knows the medium rather than someone off the cruise ship that looks at a marble and they don't look for that maybe that kind of quality or look at it as being made by a master so much. But to have someone come in here and tell me my paintings are doing really well and they paint themselves, that's cool. Even if they're not masters themselves, but they understand the medium. They know what we're up against. We're all up against this thing, and they go, wow, that's really cool. I do that. I walk into someone's gallery and look at what they're painting and like, man, that is hot. How'd you do that? And go, you just, you kind of talk shop. But that's all. I mean, if I was a master, a true master, I'd have been there by now. I mean, over 70, give me a break. Like where, and like portfolios get into, you're building your portfolio. I don't know if I'm building a portfolio. I've got one. It's a.
And I guess that's kind of what I was saying is, I look around your shop here and I look at, pretty much the whole time I've known you, I've known art by John Svenson. There's, like you said, the climbing pictures, all this different stuff. And I'm not an artist in any way. I mean, I have a hard time drawing a smiley face.
You are an artist in what you do.
It's a totally different thing, right?
Yeah, but it's.
But I look at and maybe that's just me that I look at what other people do and I'm totally fascinated. I think it's amazing the things that I can't do when I see somebody else do it. I'm totally enthralled by that. The stuff that's similar, if it's something that I can do, I'm like, well, if I can do it, anybody else can do it. So it's not that special. But I look around here and just the way that you've expanded over the years into the different mediums, I think that's phenomenal that you're in all the, and you do them all really, really well.
Well,
so I don't know if for me, if I was you, I wouldn't care if anybody called me a master because I think you do all of them really well.
Yeah,
and if they bring you enjoyment, keep doing all of them.
Yeah, it's like the same old the portfolio thing. I'm not building a portfolio. What you see is what you get, and I think my watercolors I'm understanding what I do, and like pictures of the paintings. I mean, I was taught too that the whole painting, I might not like the whole painting, but I like this part of it is really good.
Okay.
Down in the lower left-hand corner, and then you can mat that out and enlarge that piece of your painting to make it into the larger painting. And you can't be overcritical of what you, well, maybe I am overcritical of what I can see things in this that a normal human would never see that bothers me. It's like, but if you're dealing with things like perspective and that kind of thing where the normal person goes, something's really wrong with this, and the perspective is a pretty critical thing. The buildings are tilted the wrong way, and as you're purposely doing that. But you're like painting, say, things like the Matterhorn. The Matterhorn is on every chocolate box. Grandma knows the shape of the Matterhorn, especially climbers, and I paint that Matterhorn. I can't really alter it to be different because a normal person would look at that, and this doesn't look right.
Yeah.
That kind of thing. So for that audience, my Matterhorns are pretty spot on. It's the way you approach the paint, applying it to the paper and doing all of that. But the idea of being, we get into this too, when do you I mean, this is pretty crazy. When do you go from being a wannabe to a could have been? I mean, it's kind of jokingly like, well, wannabe this, and I mean, like me, I hit 70 and go, what do I want to be? Or what could I have been? And then you kind of look back in time. Well, if I'd have approached the galleries different when I was 30, or done different things, I could have been in a different, like a Ray Troll. You look at that guy, man, making $1 million on T-shirts, and he's a genius in what he did. He approached it right. His imagery is cool, and you got the John Ferringers, you've got the Nancy Stoningtons, like these other artists that kind of applied all they know to that one thing, and good business, and I don't know. I'm happy. I don't know if I want to, or if I could have been. You can't think about that too much because I could have been anything.
My pushback on that was think of the trips, the guiding trips that you took with Al and Yoshi, that if you were 100% dedicated to your artwork, that you never would have been able to take. Do you think it's worth it to go on those trips?
Oh yeah.
Instead of if you would have spent that time on artwork, and wherever you might have been in the art world or in your mind further in art, would you, looking back at it today, would you give up those trips?
I would. No, I wouldn't.
There you go.
And so that's kind of where, because that was an art form in itself. The guiding, it can relate with the gallery a lot. It's
and I think as you've said, that inspired a lot of your artwork.
Totally. Yeah.
Going on those trips inspired a lot of the stuff that you did that then you shared with others.
Yep. And see, that's what you talk about Yoshi living on his adventures. Later, when he ended, he's still, ski club and all that stuff. He's doing his thing, and he's living on that reputation that he built during that time period. I learned a lot from him, like how you build. It was insane. Like rock skiing Mount Fuji as a kid, and somebody got a hold of him. Hey, you should do that. And it kind of built into this self-promotion thing, where if I didn't get into the climbing world, who knows? I'd be painting just whales' tails and Lynn Canal. I don't know what my subject matter would be, but to put that time focusing on, I wouldn't trade those adventures for anything. Really, just to become maybe a master at painting or. No, they're a part of the whole system. That's how it kind of worked. And my whole reputation is the paintings I do of Africa or wherever it is those trips like tie that all together.
Yep.
And the idea of not having, I can't imagine not having. I was a Yahoo. Back then, when you get so obsessed with something like that, because there's your family, your group of people that's fairly small, and you're doing the best you can because you want to be, and some of those guys I was climbing with or around, like they were beyond what things that I knew I could do that if I stuck with it. You just don't go to Yosemite and climb El Capitan. You got to spend a lot of time there to just build yourself up to that. And it's kind of like painting. You just don't pick up a brush and start painting. You got to work on it and work out the bugs and like what works and what doesn't. And in the climbing world, I could get into this too. There was a title called the macho man, or like the hard man climber in the valley, and we're all kids wanting to be. I think climbing was the first thing I got involved with the people where you're identifying yourself as a group for a change, like you're with this core group of people so dedicated that that's all you did. You're starving to death, but you're on the rock. You beat up pickup truck, but you're on the rock. That's all that mattered, and watching how those guys, watching them evolve into what they became, and you wanted to be a part of that, and I was accepted into that because I was a fledgling in the beginning, and like here's this new kid on the block, and kind of filter in. As long as you're humbled and don't, there are a lot of lessons to be learned. Everything else, nothing else matters. But I stuck with the art as more of a sketched a lot and did all this, but it wasn't like the market. It wasn't like trying to sell art so much. I was too involved I became a pretty darn good climber. I was doing things that people, wow, that was cool. In the climbing world, you do something that people admire that way, and it's known, it's written up, and it's things where it was like a family to me. Maybe I needed that then when I left California and came up here and did all that, and then became involved with that scene, and there was a point there where I should have done more, where you're climbing at your peak. You've got like a 15-year period where you're younger and buff and kind of more focused and forgetting everything else and like putting all you have into that, where I was climbing horrendous things. I look at what I did, and I don't know, man, ropes didn't just break. It was all pilot error. If you died on the rocks, like in Yosemite, it's you did it. It isn't like you just fall off a rock cliff. Something happened that you screwed up, and that's where that was teaching, make sure you're screwed in, triple checking each other, don't lean over the edge until your anchors are good, and just common sense stuff, but pound it in, and when it didn't work, someone died. Someone in the valley would die because then we'd sit around the campfire like, oh my God, what happened? And say, okay, the rope ran over a sharp edge, or how'd this guy kill himself? But that kind of, it doesn't happen in the art world, not quite that. If you screw up in the mountains, you're dead, and then going into the high altitude mountaineering, the ice climbing, and getting into these high peaks where you don't. I could get into this where someone digs a snow pit like on Denali, check the snow out to see how stratified, however it is. Well, that's okay. You're on this slope that's 5,000 feet high, and what's going on up there? Maybe you're okay in your 1,000 feet,
but what's up above?
Yeah, the avalanches come down and we're like falling into a crevasse, that kind of thing that is somewhat out of control, and people do perish in the mountains quite a bit. A number of my friends have perished in the mountains, and the guy that taught me to climb was only 27, and he was giving it up because all of his friends were dead. And he was climbing in the Alps where people were dropping off ropes, and we were his last students. this guy. He's only 27. He seems so old to us. And he was like, I've had enough, man. He doesn't want to be responsible for me dying and my parents coming down on him. Like, no way. And he would slap us to the ground for standing on a rope. This guy was hard on us. He'd make me back down a whole rope length to turn the carabiner around because I clipped it wrong. That kind of stuff where he really pounded in the safety. And he said, do not compete. Competition kills. He really pounded in the safety thing. And I'm really glad for that. Me and my buddy are still alive that worked with this guy. And I don't know, but having a mentor that liked kids and he trained us to the point where, and he just passed away last year, and he was so proud of me for surviving. We'd have these talks, and he'd be revealing these things that he did that we never know, like his historical alpine stuff. And I was one of the last people that we'd talk, and he would come out with this stuff but he was just happy that I lived. I really listened to him, and that's why I'm around right now.
And I think you're kind of doing the same. Not that you're giving anything up, but giving back. Because like you said, the classes and stuff like that with the kids that were here this last weekend with the Art Fest and everything. That's always been something that I've known you for a long time. We're not close friends or anything, but I've known you coming in the store from when I was a little kid, and you've always had this very generous spirit and attitude about yourself. That you're always willing to share stuff and
try to be that way.
Yeah, well, no, that was something that always came through to me, that you're that way. And when we're trying to schedule this interview, you're like, I got these kids coming. We can't do it until after the kids are here. And when we first started talking, I don't know if we recorded that, it was before we started, when you're talking about how much enjoyment you got with those classes with the kids that were here for Art Fest this weekend.
Always, and like I mentioned, the adults are kind of where they are. The kids are just these fresh brains, and these were art kids too. They came up for the arts, so they were to focus on what they were doing. And I would rather deal with kids any day, because what's really cool about this is I'm a geezer now. I'm like really old to these 18-year-olds, and we're getting into the same discussions. Why are you climbed in Yosemite? And they've all seen Free Solo and like my subject matter, and really gets them cranking, because art you can do other stuff, and art is fun, and I'm sure reflecting they're all snowboarders. Like, these kids aren't just hanging out. A lot of them were on skis and snowboards, so they're kind of getting into that adventure aspect and enjoying Alaska for what it is, especially Alaskan kids. These guys, oh man.
They're doing all sorts of stuff.
Oh, well, I've always maintained, when I came up here, I was kind of a tough 18-year-old, 17 and a half or something in California. I'd been backpacking and all that. Came to Haines and met guys like Lee, and these 12-year-olds were tearing down chainsaws. 12-year-olds running outboards. I was a wimp. And these little guys were doing this stuff that just grown up here doing that. And I've always maintained, man, if I had to grab my bag and run for it, Armageddon hits, I'd grab a local 15-year-old. You think I'd grab an adult, and I'd grab one of these kids that knows how to live in the woods. And it's still happening that way. I thought maybe this was a phase that we were going through in the history of the world or something. But up here, these tough little suckers, I don't know. I wish like I said, I thought I was tough down there. And it was like an eye-opener to me. Like, I'm nobody, so I listened to them. They actually taught me a lot. Like, okay, dude, how do you take a chainsaw to pieces? But working with the kids, one of my, I guess, in my golden years, I'd like to pass on what I know, what little I know, to kids, and because they go, oh, you're doing all this stuff. Well, the more I study what I'm doing, it's almost the more I realize that I don't know a lot of things, because it's all hit and miss. You're trying to go to the cutting edge every time, so you want to experiment by putting one more wash on or one more sift the glass, like just to push it to the next level to see if you can pull it off, and boom, everything flies to pieces. You're walking the edge. It's kind of like climbing. You're on the edge of what you're capable of doing. Do you want to go to the next level? And like these kids, they have no level at this point. They just get like the kids on torches yesterday, like watching them, the way they approach the molten glass, what they do, and you can look at them and like, man, these guys are focused. And or some aren't, but you can see what's going on in their brains when they really want to learn it. They pick it up pretty quick, but just dealing with that mentality. I don't know where this is going.
I'll interrupt you there because I got two things I still want to discuss with you.
Go for it.
So the first one is, what was the impetus for doing the ashes in the glass? I thought that when you started doing that, I thought that was a really cool way to, and what we're talking about for those that aren't, it's cremated remains. You take the ash, you put them in a glass, and you melt it into the glass, and so you can have it as a necklace or whatever. Mm-hmm. What was the inspiration behind that?
Well, it's kind of, I knew Reese Williams, who's living here now, is a glass master. He taught glass in California, and he was doing his business with Crystal Eternities, where he would take the ashes and lay them out and just roll this big bubble. He's a glass blower in this big vessel form, and there they were, and it would bubble and do this weird stuff. And that's where I'd first really seen that. And then I'm a bead maker. I don't have a hot shop, so my mother passed away. And okay, what are we going to do with her? And my dad was kind of in on this, like, let's put her in a bead. So lay mom out, roll her in this thing, and make these mother beads. And wow, that works. And there's the way. The first one's really rude because I wasn't sure how much it's a different substance. What can you mix with glass and not destroy the glass, and just kind of that system evolved, and like, wow, mom turned out good. And now here's dad. I got dad now. And I've done husbands and wives together, and it's something like I'll make one for somebody, they'll go back eastward, and someone will look at that and go, what's that? Wow, that's right. And then the word kind of spreads. Okay. It's on the website, but I haven't really promoted that heavily. And it goes in waves, like cats and dogs, a lot of cats and dogs. Yeah. And humans come in every now and then. But the whole idea in the glass world, throughout world history, how many Armageddons have there been, where whole civilizations have been leveled, and going through that, especially like in the Middle East and Baghdad, the oldest hot shops were found in Baghdad, and the Tigris and Euphrates, and someone could correct me on that. The sand is so good; it's good for making glass, and like the Mediterranean coast. I mean. So the oldest hot shops, the remains, there's always beads. In all of the ruins all over the world, glass is the last thing there. Yeah. And just that aspect itself, like these beads that I put someone in, how many generations does that go down? Like, this is mom, and okay, that's grandma, and then there's great-grandma, and where does this bead go? And in the end, someone may own that doesn't know who's in it, but they're still wearing that bead. And grandma's, she's looking out of this bead and like placing them in my mother. I spread her all over the place. Penguin nests in Antarctica. Put her there, like shooting her with a slingshot into volcanoes, and I mean, really cool stuff. And sticking her in weird places because people run across these, and because beads are in like Africa. You spread a few beads around, and it's going to end up around some guy's neck. Yeah. The coolest thing I did, I put her in a wad of hamburger and fed her to a lion on the Serengeti. This lion wolfed her down, and so she was pooped out in the Serengeti, and then the hyenas come along through the poop, and then a Maasai, I'm sure, because it glints, I'm sure she's being worn around the neck of a herdsman, and just that whole concept, and my dad got a kick out of that, like, oh man, that's like payback. You do to your kids, because you never know where you're going to end up. But it's like, they're forever. Yeah. I mean, I've got beads here that are 3,000 years old from Tutankhamun's, the Valley of the Kings. I like the staying power of it, as much as, especially with the ashes in it. Like I said, nobody knows who's wearing these beads. In 100 years, where's mom? She's around somebody's neck. If it's a bead, they're going to wear it. And so that's cool. Yeah. And I don't know, the idea of sprinkling someone in the garden, that's okay, but it's good for one crop, and then they're gone for good.
Yeah. I like that. I like that.
And I'm not the only one doing that, too. I mean, you can Google that, find other people doing it.
Yeah, it was the first I'd heard it when I saw you were doing it.
Yeah, maybe my approach is a little different, but I don't know. I'm certainly not the only guy doing that. I didn't invent it either, but maybe in Southeast Alaska, I am the guy.
You're the guy. Yeah. So the other one that, besides as artistic and everything as you are, is the thing I think that kind of shows some of your toughness as well, is you're a cancer survivor.
Yeah.
So and that was several years ago. I mean,
that was 20 years ago.
Has it been 20 years already?
Yeah. And Sharon is too. People say, oh, I've got a friend who's sick. Or say, oh, what is it? Cancer. Oh, of course. It's kind of gotten to that
Yeah.
Where it's horrible, but it's so common that, of course it is. And yeah, and talk about new lease on life too. They caught me in time. 3 millimeters, I wouldn't be here right now. I mean, it's one of those things where, boy, timing is everything. Blood tests, I swear by it. Mammograms, go in when you're 20, do not wait. It's like this myth that, after 50 you should start doing this. There's no way. And but yeah, talk about a new lease on life. And I looked at that 20 years ago as my rebirth. Boy, I got away with that one. And it's like counting the years from then. Now I'm 20 years old, and like how old I
You can almost drink.
Huh?
You're a year away from being able to legally drink in your rebirth.
Oh gosh, I've climbed incredibly hard things after that. That's but that whole concept of, I mean, I get, how many people in Haines have gone through this, and how it's like this almost a taboo subject, but I don't think it's so taboo anymore. It's so common, and you can feel free to kind of talk about it and like. It's pure luck, I think. All of us are lucky to be standing right now because, I mean, like the cancer hitting people, I mean, kids. So it isn't like, you get old and you die of something like that. It's like, man, really be on top of it. You have to, in a blood test, I was so scared of needles. I think when I was a little kid, when I got my tonsils out or something, the needles were like pencil leads and they stuck them in me. And I would not get a blood test for 50 years. I'm not going near a needle. And now with the technology and all that, it's definitely. But yeah, cancer survivor. I don't know. Everybody that goes through this that I've talked to feels kind of the same way. Living on pins and needles, you're still. It hasn't come back, so maybe I'll make it. And the doctors all say, "You say, Doc, am I cured?" Well, none of them say, "Don't think about it anymore." All of them say, okay, you're cured for now, but keep up with it, that kind of thing. They can't just write you off as a success story.
How do you think that changed your perspective on things going through that?
I see someone, it's like the new hip thing too. I see someone limping on Main Street, I know it's their hip. You just know it, just by the way they're walking. And of course, cancer, you can't tell what people have been through, but I think it's like, it gives you like a lease on life. Okay, I caught it in time, and I've got these years I think it made me focus on the climbing, especially. I better get these things done now, and because I don't have forever, and the painting, I will do that when I'm in assisted living with a paintbrush. You can always paint, but and then the torch work. I don't know. I think it's just more focus on, you're not invincible. I think there's a time in your life where your friends start fading out. At 50 on, that's when people start drifting into whatever they are, like dying or becoming ill or something, and you really have to start thinking about the next. You're long from dead. You've got till 90, if you really hang on and eat right and do your things and don't get busted up, but you're on the kind of the countdown, and I don't feel like these working around kids, man. People are so exhausted. These kids for 6 days just inundated. I've gained energy, man. I'm so pumped. I could have kept working with these guys just because they're beginning their lives and they're just getting into this, and that's why like passing on what I know to them. I think that helped in that too. Like I want to let you know what I did, and here's my history, and go for it and approach it any way you want, but don't not approach it. Like face it and do it. If you don't like painting, move on to something else. And if you don't like wood blocks, move into glass. But just keep moving. Don't get discouraged. People, like some of the kids do, I'm not an artist. I get that from adults a lot. I'm not an artist. Never have been. Well, everybody's an artist. You just have to start somewhere and accept the fact that you can't draw that coffee cup right now, waiting for your dinner. But if you tomorrow night try it again, and it gets better and better, and pretty soon you're at shadows, and things just grow on themselves like that. But you have to enjoy doing it, and you have to stick with it. And these kids, man, I've got all their email addresses, and one of my goals in life, I think I've succeeded so far, is being the coolest old guy these kids meet. Man, he's coolest old guy. And these kids were like that. Oh man, we're all coming back. You're so cool. And I mean that whole thing. I don't want to be this old cantankerous geezer that nobody wants to hang out with. I want to be.
We need to get you a T-shirt Coolest old guy you'll ever meet. And
Cool geezer.
You can just wear that at the shop here, so everybody that comes in, they're just going to know right at the start.
Yeah, and have extreme
Yeah.
dreams. There's my
Extreme
marketing
dreams.
right there.
Yeah. Extreme Dreams, home of the coolest old guy you'll ever meet.
Yeah, I mean, I've met a lot of cool guys. I want to be the guy that I wish I met when I was a kid. I mean, you kind of get to that, like, and I did meet a few of those guys, like the painters and just the, yeah, I mean, it just makes sense. And like pass on, like I said, what I know. If they're coherent, I'll pass on more. If they really get it, I'll stick with the kid and just train them to do what I'm doing because, and then this competition, oh, you're training your competition. Are you kidding me? Everybody approaches, and I've met artists like, I don't want to show you how I did that because you step on my toes and start doing this. Well, you don't.
Everybody's going to have their own take on it. Nothing's going to be the same.
No, it's you might try and do the same thing, or it's like taking a photograph and making a mosaic out of it. Oh, plagiarizing? Well, I don't think you're plagiarizing. That's nowhere near the photo. Just flip it over and make it reverse, and but that I don't know. It's as long as they keep cranking at it. But being the cool old guy they come back to, and plus get jokingly like all these young kids, whether they're like in their 12, 15 or something, they're going to be the ones pushing me around in a wheelchair. And I tell them directly that, like, you guys, they keep you liking me, man. You're going to be the guy pushing me around.
I want you to have fond memories of
all
me.
the hands go, I'll do it. Yeah, right. But, you know, let them know I value them and what their approach. And especially the kids that are into the arts. God, it's so fun working with minds that came here to do art. And not, say, basketball or other sports. We get lots of kids in here, but the ones that are focusing on this is what they came to do. And everything, they were so attentive and just on it. And that's where I think I get, my energy was from them. They were like perking me up, and I was telling stories, and they asked questions too that are pretty cool. You know, like, wow, an adult never asked me that. And mostly about growing up, and it's amazing the questions I get about adulthood. Like, what should I do and where should I go? And, you know, it's like telling you, take a course in business, man, and you'll do better than you, you know, at least if you start a business, you should know how it works.
Well, and as I think of that question too, as I've gotten older, it's like, don't worry about failing, because there's always another option.
Yeah.
I look at when I was 17, 18, where I thought my life was going to go and where it's actually gone. I never would have picked where I'm at now.
Yeah. Well, that
40 years ago.
Failure is that's where the watercolorists. A lot of people give it up because it's a lot trickier than oils. You lose your whites. You're not painting white over it again. You have to really think ahead and plan these things out. And a lot of people kind of give up watercolors because they just, I don't know, they don't want to try again and again. Failure. It's the same with climbing. Failure. I've probably bailed on more climbs than I've succeeded on, just because I had the, you know, I don't know, something happened to where I don't care if I make the summit or not. That's not the point. It's like the adventure trying to get there and back. And I've been with climbers that I never fail. You know, they got to go on or it's a tragedy. And you know that's not the case. If it's a goal you've been trying to hammer away at for years and years, and you still didn't make it, there's like Al, this guy in Everest. Finally, he just says, "Okay, I've done enough." And
time to go on to the next
challenge. Then what are you doing? Building? That's a personal thing. You're still building a portfolio and all these ascents I did, and I've got to make this last one, or like entering juried shows, or so. I don't know. I've been a bunch of those, and like the Alaskan Watercolor Society send paintings up, and they bring a judge in from New York to look at all these things that Alaskans have done, and then that person from New York, you get a prize or you don't. You like honorable mention. You go through all this stuff, and I've had my most successful paintings with those kind of things are like I sent a picture of Nepal, and got first prize on this Nepalese painting with prayer flags and all this stuff. And like, what's that all about? This guy's coming to Alaska to analyze Alaskan artwork. And he based it solely on composition, like how it went together, how the colors worked. He didn't care what the
subject was.
And what a thrilling, I mean, wow, that was really cool, because the guy that's how he was looking at everything. He didn't care if it was a whale or moose, or that didn't have anything to do with it. But the poor guy that did a perfect moose, I mean, I look at what he did, like, it's just, you know, and to think that you fail because you weren't chosen in a juried show or something like that, or get into the gallery is like, you got to accept that. Like these big murals we're doing all over the state for 1% for the arts, big murals, and where there's a selection process where it's advertised. So, okay, this is what I do. Okay, well, what would you do with this? And then you get the floor plan and how they're at the whole time you're supplying them with more information on your approach, the subject matter, what it's all about. They're whittling those applications down. Like, I don't know if this will work. And I think we hit it pretty lucky on mosaics because they're everlasting. They attract light. They're just perfect. And they whittle it down to down to the 5 people that fit within their budget.
Yeah.
And like, wow, I mean, then you contact those people because you're like, I'm going to put this over here. What are you going to do over there? And then that artist community, and it doesn't mean that they were chosen because they're master artists. It's because their subject matter just fit the bill.
Yeah.
And we've gotten 15 of these things, and it's kind of like get on a roll with these big projects, and that's really survive. We survive because of that in a lot of cases. Like Ignite, and that's the 1% for the arts. What a program that is. And now the kind of budgets run out, and I think I've applied for one now, waiting for a smaller one, and just seeing how that works is fun. And then your work is in all of these schools, and people look at that, like in Wasilla and Willow and that area. You've got a few in there, and like the architects and the engineers, whoever's developing this thing, and the panel that chooses this stuff can see a real one on the wall. They go, man, this is really cool. Like, let's consider this guy. And really lucky. And my approach to that is I don't want to suck your budget dry because it's not cheap. I want other artists to be in there with us. That's what it's all about. It's not just me on the wall. I want to see what other people do, and they like that too, like that approach, and let them kind of figure out if they're going to give you that money or not. And all of these projects, it's been done to like 5 artists on the big school things. So we're not in those things alone. I don't know where I was going with that. It's like, but that's money on the barrelhead, and that's pretty rare. Where they just like stamp the check and here you go.
Check. Come right. You got this many months, and then we expect it to be installed.
Yeah, you get an advance payment to buy the materials, and it's all. I'm trying to be as friendly with them as possible. Because a lot of these people that on the panels and the engineers and stuff, they're not dealing with really friendly people a lot. It's like strictly business, and you get this thing going where I get dialogue. You like hooligan? Okay, you get going back and forth and establish a real relationship.
Makes a difference, doesn't it?
Oh, God. Well, it's like get into the cruise ship thing. We're dealing with an audience, a reactive audience, and it all comes down to, I think, guiding. The mountain guiding is all. When people come in the gallery door, I'm a guide. I really am. And one thing I hate about a lot of galleries is like, there you are in this silent room with all this art, and here's this bejeweled babe in high heels click-clacking around trying to sell you stuff. And that's not what it's all about. Art sells itself. I don't need someone to sell me something. If it's the technical aspect, that's cool. But, and always have music going in the back, so when people are talking, you're not listening to them over there, and make people comfortable in the situation they're in. And that's really important to me. It's like, but then you're guiding. You're basically, I'm showing them everything, and I'm pretty good with people because of the guiding thing, and I can relate. Like get into it, but the cruise ship audiences, that's another whole. I never in my life thought I would ever be on a cruise ship, ever, because you watch the cruise ships, they dock. Unload the zombies just pouring off of these ships, and they're all standing on center line, and they're lost in space, and they walk all the way down to Delta Western for a hot dog, and they're being shoving food in on these boats, and it's just this weird mentality that. But to get on one and see, because of this program in Skagway,
what program is
the Enrichment program?
The Enrichment program?
Yeah, like they don't want some kid with a plastic bear tooth from Colorado talking about bears up here. They want someone on the boat that's actually knows about this place, and it's a pretty fresh program. I think it's the 4th year where. I mean, talk about a sweet deal. I'm never going to pay for a cruise, but it's kind of like the guiding. Like suddenly I'm thrown into this situation that I couldn't have afforded, or even wanted to. But suddenly dirtbag climber dumpster diving on a cruise ship. I mean, your origins and where it can lead you. You just
so when you go on the cruise ships, do you get on in Skagway and do you do the whole week, or do you just go to Juneau, or what's that format look like for you when you're on that?
Royal Caribbean, we fly to Seattle, get on the boat there and do the round trip to Seattle.
You do the round trip?
Yeah.
Okay.
For 3 40-minute presentations. 40 minutes. And the attention of a cruise ship, this is a whole new world because you're kind of guiding there too. The attention of a cruise ship passenger is 40 minutes. It doesn't matter if it's Cirque du Soleil, somebody like Trivia, or me on stage, 40 minutes. That's when the hook comes out. And that's when you start to lose them. This can't be true. When I'm on stage looking at these people, and I did one on Denali called The Meat Grinder. And I said, what do you want me to talk about? Kick ass, they said. That was literally kick ass. Wake them up. Okay, The Meat Grinder Denali. It's all purple toes and crevasses and that stuff. And then the other one is around here up on the ice fields, bushwhacks to hell. And it's like that aspect. And then there's another one on like Haines low-level stuff, what we see from like skiff trips and stuff. And then like life in general. And man, you get on, the introduction takes 5 minutes. Well, that leaves 35 minutes. And then you start yakking about this stuff. You can't dwell on each slide. You have to kind of keep moving and watching these people out there and have them interact with me. Like, how many have climbed Denali? Nobody. How many have seen it? A few hands go up, and so you're relating with the crowd. They love that when they become a part of the act in a way. And but man, when that hook comes out, they're like, we got to get out of here. The trivia guys are already standing next to me with their notepads
with the notepad ready to go.
Yeah, but the idea of dealing with an audience, like 1,000 people, you're looking at all these faces and even though you're just another act, a 40-minute act, it's the meat grinder. And how many came here because of the title of this thing? Hands go up. And all of this stuff, everything you're seeing on the screen was shot with film and transferred digitally, but it was all with real cameras back in the days when, there was no digital stuff, and let them know where they're coming from. How many people have shown real slides? Gray hairs. How many have shot real film? Gray hairs. Anybody under 50 is like, so the older folks can really relate with that approach to it. Because all this stuff and like how we didn't have, you talk about ancient technology, this whole surveying thing in Skagway, we didn't even have hand calculators back then. Everything was done longhand with transits, vernier plates and magnifying glasses. There's nothing electrical. And that's why it took 3 years to survey that thing. Right now they fly over it, and there it is. They can print it out. But man, the chainman, we'd be all these numbers, like 12 digits, stacked up and come out. And if 2 out of 3 were correct, that was good. Seriously, ancient stuff, and where it's evolved, like kind of like this slideshow thing on the boat. It's like, how many people were born before digital stuff happened? And I don't know, but then you're kind of dealing with them and letting them know I'm only up here for 40 minutes, but man, I've got my little hat on, got my badge, and any time on this boat, I'm at your disposal. You just walk up and start talking, and then they suddenly loosen up, and it's just fun. So the rest of the trip, they know you're out there to give them information, and I've watched the other shows on these boats, like, man, this is terrible. Like how they're not relating with it's 40 minutes, but it's only 40 minutes and then they're out of there. But we're letting them know I'm part of this journey too. And my hand went, this is your first cruise? Bunch of hands go up, mine goes up. Wow, so you're as blown away as I am. Like, whoa, and let them know you're one of them. Yeah. But, I don't know. But who knows, that whole program, the Royal Caribbean, like these quantum boats with 7,000 people on it. That's the population of Sitka is on this boat. 800 kids. You can skydive on this boat. You can surf on this boat. Climbing walls, inflatable laser tag castles. It's insane. Right down to daycare. The kids are taken care of. You walk on and you buy your $800 drink ticket. The adults can drink all they want for those 7 days, and the kids are taken care of. The adults are sitting in the jacuzzis just drinking. It's a fun zone. And I mean, I could get into this cruise ship thing, the atrocity and the magical at the same time, because there's no getting around the atrocity aspect, the smoke and the food waste and all that stuff. But the engineering aspect to me is, I don't know how they make 5,000 beds a day, like how all this stuff happens is this flawless system.
And even the turnaround from when they'll get back to Seattle, whatever their head port, they've got to get all those people off.
You bet.
They've got to get everybody's luggage and stuff back on to their rooms. The people checked in.
Yeah.
And
Within
all
a
the
few
provisions,
hours.
all the provisions, all the garbage off, all the provisions on. And it's a really tight window. That's
huge.
It's all in one day.
Oh, yeah.
But it's not even like 24 hours. Yeah.
You know, we're offloading and they're onloading.
Yeah, the logistics of it just amaze me. Not the engineering for the ships to get something that big and to have all that really cool stuff and still have it float is amazing as heck.
And, you know,
but the logistics of having all of that stuff, it just blows my mind.
I don't get it. You know, and it's like, and it's flawless. I never saw one fist fight. You know, all that stuff going on. But you think of, we've seen the movies where below, there's 5 decks below where we go. Mm-hmm. That's where the hissing pipes and the Keanu Reeves is chasing the terrorists with a bomb.
Yep.
That's all happening down there that we don't see. But he saves the day by 1 minute.
Yep.
We don't see that stuff. You know if it's going on or not. But it's like the food waste was, and I deal a lot with the people, like the workers, because they're all from Indonesia and Africa, and those are the really cool people. And like, what do you think of this? And getting kind of their opinions, and they're all distraught and in rags and poor. They're having a good time. I think that I don't know about the guys on the sewage deck where you enter into the industry. They're having such a good time, but like everybody above deck is just really fun. And like start talking Africa with an African on board and get these dialogues going. And the food waste is just horrible. And even they hate that. You know, to get into it, like we called it the hog trough on the big boats where there was an Asian circle, a Mexican circle, and like all of an acre of food, and everybody just goes in and they're just shoveling it in. That's all free, and at the end of the evening, there's still 2 feet high of chicken wings, Jello. I mean, ton of food. And what do you do with this? So they throw it into a hopper, grind it up, and throw it out the back, you know, like into hash-sized chunks. And I'm sure the halibut on those routes are doing really well. But can you back up to? And the crew doesn't eat that food. They have their own kitchens down there. Mm-hmm. And boy, one container backed up against that boat in Juneau, and 1 day's offloading could feed all the poor folks in Juneau, like the Glory Hole, all this stuff. They'd be eating like kings. But I guess FDA won't let them feed them old chicken wings, you know, that kind of thing. And the crew is from that; they don't like that food waste at all. And I don't know what they can do about that. But so you're just.
It'd be interesting to look at that, see if there is a way.
If there's a way, because I live on day old chicken wings, man. I need a day old chicken wing any day.
Or even if there's a way you could freeze it or dehydrate it or freeze dry it or something that it can be reused at another time.
Yeah,
that's our culture in general. We waste so much stuff.
Oh God! And you see that firsthand, and like, but the kitchen decks and stuff being the acres of stainless steel. The food is immaculate. Got the sous chefs. Everybody is immaculate. Acres of stainless steel kitchens going up on dumbwaiters, and I mean, the process is unbelievable. I'm glad I'm seeing that. You know what? That was my show at the library last week. The Belly of the Beast. What's going on inside of this thing? And but
they recorded the last one, right?
They did.
Is that going to be online anywhere if people wanted to watch that? Do you know?
I'm sure they've got it. I don't think it went out like a Zoom.
It wasn't a Zoom meeting, but it was recorded.
It's all recorded.
I wonder if so that was at the library?
I'd probably ask them.
Yeah, we'll have to check with that and see if that's available online somewhere for people to check out.
Yeah, but you know, that's sort of the culmination. You wonder, you know, my origins and where I ended up. I mean, I've been on a cruise ship and like what I've been through, and like how did I end up on a cruise ship in the Southeast? And I mean, that's like the Glitter Dome. This is as good as it can get. Like seeing Alaska on their ticket and eating, and Sharon goes free. She won't go on Royal Caribbean again, but she'll go on the Queen Elizabeth, and this is their last sailing this fall. Queen Elizabeth And you talk about a difference. It was like a white glove service and ballroom dancing, string quartets, and I mean, really Titanic on steroids and really fun. And she'll do that one, but the quantums, she's done with that. It's just
She's had enough trips.
enough of that.
So how many trips will you make a summer on that?
Well, last year we did 2, and the end of this month I'm on Princess Cruise going to Whittier. We're doing one presentation. I don't know how they're probably wallowing in money, but I get on that in Skagway. One presentation, we go into Glacier Bay, and then Whittier offload me, get me to Anchorage, fly back to Juneau to here, which I don't pay for any of that for one 40-minute presentation. And I've never been on Princess. That's 2,000 people, 2,500. And then I'm going on the Quantum at the end of early June.
Okay.
And Sharon's not going, but I can bring a friend. So I've signed my brother up, David, to do my 3rd presentation. And it's all Tlingit culture. He's adopted Tlingit and all of that, so he can do a really good present. He's never been on a cruise ship, so I get to bring him and then go back and forth. And what's then the Queen Elizabeth is end of August, pretty much toward the end of August, and that's we get on that in Haines, go to Seattle, offload, new load, and come back off and get off in Haines again.
Nice.
We don't have to fly anywhere.
Yeah.
And that's sweet. I really like that. Meeting 2 boatloads of
two different people, and
So
cool.
I don't know. I'll do it as long as the program's going. I'll do it because I've got it wired right now, and it's a little break from here. Another thing I like about the cruise ship is you need a passport to get on. It's like a foreign country. These are foreign flag vessels, so you're not in the United States when you get on these things. And so you go through all these security checks and stuff, and passport, and the last person in line, there's this beige vested babe with $1 million smile, welcome you onto this boat. Have a good time. And the whole thing is, it's non-political. You go in and there's big hearts, diversity, love, get party and scream, like, go crazy. This is your week off. We're not even on Earth anymore. And that approach to me was like, it was, because you can tell these people are rampaging on these boats. They're just like, it doesn't exist out there. And I think with the way the world's kind of going right now, we don't know where it's going, but if they keep that theme going, I think
they're going to continue to be successful.
You're just going to another planet for
break
a
from
week.
reality.
Yeah, and I think that's a killer approach to this whole thing, because I never really met an angry person, I'm sure both sides are there, but we're all in disguise. And it's like, but that approach really freaked me out. I like that, because it's a love boat, and it's like the whole thing is a daycare center. Their job is just to make sure
daycare for all ages.
Oh yeah, right down to daycare. So, but I like that. As far as through this program, I've seen that industry, like how it works, because most people, you just see the results. You don't see what's going on these boats. And I don't know, like where that whole industry is going. It's so hard to tell where anybody's. What it comes down to is we are so lucky to be here in Haines. I think we're in one of the sweet spots on Earth of all of the Earth. There's a bunch of them around there, but this is sweet. We have it so good up here because, it'll be Mad Max rampaging through the deserts down there, but we'll be pulling out crab and shrimp and water, and we just got it so good. I don't know if the society collapses, you're not going to have commercial crabbers coming in. You're taking our crabs.
Be careful though, because if you sell this too much, then a bunch of society's collapsing. They're all going to run up here and they're going to be camping in your yard.
Yeah, I better watch what I say. Don't let.
We don't want to let them know the whole story, John.
Yeah,
just a little bit.
My root cellar's got 5 years worth of food in there. You don't want to tell you. We've seen that movie before.
Yep.
But we are so, I don't know. I love this place. We're not going anywhere. This is the end of the line. Yep. And like this relationship with Canada, Whitehorse, Haines Junction, Skagway and Haines, we've been partying for 100 years. And like watching that kind of, they come down to fish, we go to the Yukon, and how that, with everything going on, how that is, we still have such a good thing going. Yep. I welcome Canadians, you bet. I give them discounts, 10% off, because everything is, we go to Canadian Tire, we do all of our stuff, but I don't know, I just think that, we're just so lucky. And I get that, a lot of people that come here for the first time are looking at this place and, any land for sale. You just see their eyes light up on a nice day. But yeah, come back in January and see what you say. July is one thing.
Might change your mind.
I don't know. But to be in a place that people spend, lifetime, saving money to come to a place like this, and we live in it.
Yep.
And we saw that like in Yosemite, the Degnan family staked out the middle of Yosemite Valley, like a couple acres right in the middle of the valley. And that family, when they staked that out back in 18 something, wow, they've had the deli going, and this living in a place like that where people go to visit it and are amazed. You got your own fire pit and your own land, that kind of thing.
Yep.
Oh.
Well, I appreciate you sharing some time with us here, John.
Well,
I know we could probably go for another 4 or 5 hours.
Don't get me cranking.
We can. There's a lot of things we could go down, but I think people are going to enjoy hearing your story. I know I always enjoy my conversations with you over the years, and I appreciate you filling in a lot more of that today and sharing your love of the arts and outdoors in Haines.
Well, I hope I made some sense in all this jabbering about.
You made a lot of sense to me. So
you get me on a tangent and talking about certain aspects of all of this, and I don't know. But that's part of being when I get into this guiding aspect, like talking to people, and what I've found cruise ships too is like someone, or even coming in here, someone wants to know more, and that's rare that people come in. They want to know more than what they're actually seeing, and we start digging into the details and what really happened. Like all of us that moved to Haines, and we've gone through 3 generations in Mud Bay, and watching the evolution of like the Jurgelites and the Soggies and the Nelsons. How when we moved here, we were the kids. We were like 28 or 30, and how they showed us they were our mentors. Like, this is how you build a cabin, and this is how you build a root cellar. They knew all that, but they were the pioneers where they would just throw a log into the ground, and then that's good for 30 years. Well, 30 years comes along, and you're under the house replacing that log. And a lot of us sort of built that way. And I've been replacing some footings. And now the next generation comes along, and we're mentoring them. Like, I can tell them what not to do. Don't do it that way. Yeah. And all these new 20-somethings are pouring concrete foundations with in-floor heating, and they're doing it going it to the next level because of what we did, and they see us repairing things and going back, and how that how that evolved from the real pioneering aspect to what we are now and what's happening in this town. All the young folks' houses going in here are going to be here long after ours could crumble into the ground just because of the way they're building it, and it's so good to see that because they're serious about this place. They wouldn't be putting that much time and effort into it. And I like that, just being in a place where people are thinking about it. And what that brought, we could research this. I don't know.
Okay. Go ahead.
When I moved here, 1968, there was a gunfight downtown. And this is part of what made me, I'm moving to this place. And gunshots. So I was in Port Chilton.
The fact that there was a gunfight downtown is what led you to want to be like, I want to be here?
There was death involved.
That's usually what people are like, I don't want to go to that place.
Well, like I was saying, like Indians to me were like TV Indians. And this wasn't a native thing. But, gunshots went off and all the power in town went out for a while. And the next day we found that this was at Wiley's. Remember Wiley's Cafe? It was like a soda joint across from the museum with the hexagonal windows. And some guy was sitting in there, and or some woman was sitting there. Some guy came into, maybe it was what was the bar next to Wiley's? It was a bar. So
I don't remember the bar.
The Pioneer was always there. So the typical cowboy scene. The woman's sitting there, and this guy comes in, sits on, and says, "Hey babe, what's her name?" And then the woman's husband literally kicked down the door. "Where's my wife?" And he came in and in a rage, and they were just sitting next to each other, and he goes, "I'm gonna kill your ass!" And he left the bar to get his gun, and the bartender had a shotgun, and the trooper was notified. There was a showdown on Main Street, and one person was killed. The wife might have been wounded, and the trooper was winged. Pretty good. It was an all-out gunfight.
This is the first time I've ever heard this story, John.
I kind of asked older people, and they kind of remember this happening too.
Yeah.
And then one stray bullet took the power out by the Pioneer. And like, oh my God, this was so cool. Like, this is a real thing. And that same year in Skagway, there was a showdown on Main Street with a shotgun and a pistol, just like the movies. And I think the guy with a pistol got peppered pretty good, and the pistol missed. But it was like a real draw partner kind of thing.
I got to ask some people about this gunfight.
Yeah, the gunfight is.
My mom probably knows.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, that was.
My parents were
What
here.
year was it?
68.
It was in one of the bars, probably where the Igloo. I don't think it was the Pioneer. I think it was on Main
68.
Street.
She would have been 13 or 14.
Remember
Yeah,
the
that's
green?
Tony probably would know.
Tony would probably know.
Yeah.
And, but to confirm, I mean, I kind of tell this story, and I talk to people, older people, and they go, "Yeah, I kind of remember. Not sure how many actually died, and what, but the power going out is kind of confirmed. Yeah, it could have been the Pioneer. It was right there next to the power plant.
Yeah.
But that kind of
We got to do some research on this.
Yeah.
You've given us a mission.
yeah, it is a mission. I hope it's true to a point. And
Yeah.
of course, the death and all that. But that was like, I'm done with California. This
is where
the
it's
place to be.
And that's the part that cracks me up. It's like, I want to go where the gunfights are. That's the place for me.
Well, that was kind of fun.
Yep.
But relating that story, you know, things kind of grow into. But this was just this year. I asked a couple of older folks. They go, "Yeah, I remember that gunfight. That was so it did happen." And yeah, if we can dig up the dirt on that.
Dig up
see-
some dirt.
Oh man.
We got a project now. All right. Well,
So
thank
this
you,
has
John.
been fun. I'd like
Yeah,